Chapter 720, Genesis Stage. Chapter 720, Genesis Stage. Proofreader, Papa Tonks. Senior sister, isn't that the drunkard we met in that small town? Dana pointed at the old man in the air as she asked Shui Ruohua. Shui Ruohua was startled. That's definitely him. Zhuo Fan said he was an unfathomable expert, and we later realized it as well, but I didn't think he'd be this strong. His power must be tyrannical to cause such a huge gulf. Chu Qingcheng nodded as well. Zhuo Fan looked on with a frown. Why go about sneaking in when he's now showing himself? Maybe he got pissed he didn't find the sacred weapon and figured the Exalted screwed him over. So now he drew them out. Since the cover is blown, it is over. But were the Exalted easy targets? You might be the best in Western lands, but that is when it comes to personal strength. Just how much do you have it in you to fight your two former masters? There's strength in numbers. Zhuo Fan frowned. He figured this might happen. The two sides would meet, and after a brief talk they'd figure out he stole the sacred weapon. Then Danqing Shen and the Exalted would come to deal with him. Then again, in this deadly situation, there was still a chance they had some bad blood between them. This would lead to a misunderstanding. They all knew the sacred weapon was strong and not just anyone could wield it. But who knew the divine eye of the void could control it? This way, the sacred weapon had disappeared into thin air. They would have no choice but to ask each other for clues. Because only the three of them could get it, while forgetting about him next would be fighting it out only to settle nothing in the end. It was his most favorite item of the day. Zhuo Fan hoped his sneaky plan would go as he wished, to have both sides think the sacred weapon was on each other. And not to resolve their issues while fighting, or they would soon suspect him. That's when I'm done for. However, the chances of that happening were highly unlikely. Or Danqing Shen wouldn't just sneak in. What is he doing there? We clearly sealed the entrance, only leaving this side. Did he enter right under our noses? Exalted Heiran took a deep breath and roared in fury. Exalted by my just frowned in thought. Danqing Shen stood before the sacred mine as he shouted at a monitoring array, "Masters, I've come to visit. Won't you see me? Master? His from the Double Dragon Manor?" The audience was stunned at this development. The Exalted felt helpless. Exalted Heiran shouted and a white gate appeared in the air. He stepped through it, with Exalted by my right behind him. The audience was even more perplexed. The guy called for his master, so why isn't he showing up? Does he want the Exalted to go there? Wait, does that mean the Exalted had disciples? But we know they only ever had one. The best in Western lands, Danqing Shen, everyone exclaimed. That old man standing in that storm is that strong. Yang Mo had already guessed his identity, but hearing him admitting it still came as a shock. He was Danqing Shen, and only he dared to say that none of Western lands' 10 sects could stop him. Now he came to see his old masters, the Exalted Double Dragons, the strongest in Western lands. He did not come for a social visit though. A battle was about to break out. Seeing the three strongest in Western lands fight makes this trip all the more worthwhile. Ha ha ha. Yang Mo was shaking in excitement. Shui Ruohua was dumbstruck. The girls knew the old man was beyond them, but they never thought he was that formidable. Yet these ignorant lasses actually tied up this monster. If not for Zhuo Fan stopping these fools, they might have done something they'd regret. Shui Ruohua realized that their being alive was all thanks to Zhuo Fan. All the girls looked gratefully at Zhuo Fan, only to see him calmly watching the screen. Whoosh. The Exalted appeared before Danqing Shen and looked at the deep gulf beneath him with a dark look. "Sheng, is this how you welcome us?" Exalted Heiran squinted. Danqing Shen looked over at him, then bowed before the two. "Greetings, masters. If you still see me as a disciple." "Humph, you caused such a mess back then and have been cast out of Double Dragon Manor. You've since stopped being our disciple." Exalted Heiran flicked his sleeve as he huffed. Danqing Shen's face twitched and said, "If that's the case, why then did you accept my greeting? A day a master, a father for life. Did we not teach you? Even if we don't see you as a disciple, you don't see us as masters? You won't greet us upon meeting us? Humph, you've become worse, I see." Exalted Heiran replied. "Ua." Danqing Shen groaned and sighed. "Master Heiran, you're the same as always, still so shameless. You dare talk to your master like that? As if you're any better." "Yes, I'm nothing to look at, but isn't that what my master taught me? With your shameless style, I got half of your so-called integrity. That's called rubbing off on me, ha ha ha. Dan Qingshan mocked. Exalted He Ran rolled his eyes and ignored him. He actually felt better hearing this, being brought back to those days as he taught this kid. Exalted by my knew his thoughts and smiled, then turned serious. Sheng, what are you doing here? What do you want? I broke in to take back my sword. Sword? Exalted by my exclaimed, the Atlas sword? It's no longer yours. Why should we return it? Of course it's mine, you agreed. On the day I can beat the both of you, I have the right to inherit it. That is a promise we made to our disciple, which you no longer are. Exalted He Ran snorted. Dan Qingshan smiled and shrugged. No matter, I'll be taking that sword today. No matter how much it cost. I didn't want to fight with masters, planning on taking it and leaving, but since you found out, we can only go by the old agreement. No matter if it's 1 or 2, I'll beat you both and take that sword. You sure can talk. Don't think you can defeat us just because you got to stab me with a sword when you were banished. Exalted Double Dragon shouted, in a single battle, you are the best in Western lands, but don't forget we two never separate. You still have a long way to go to be the best. Dan Qingshan was angry as he gnashed his teeth. It doesn't matter, we'll know once we fight. His entire aura exploded. The sky dimmed as sword waves covered the heavens and cut everything they touched. The world was breaking apart before he even attacked. Everyone cried out. They would all be wiped out in an instant if that happened here. The best in Western land. Zhuo Fan shouted, the peak of mortal domain, Genesis stage. Above the soul harmony stage was returning to one's ancestry, the Genesis stage. When the soul made a link with the world's power, one could truly destroy this land. It was without a doubt the strongest in the mortal domain, and this stage was where one broke the shackles of mortality to enter Spirit King stage. Only that kind of cultivator had the right to roam the sacred domain. Chapter 721, Master and Disciple Fight. Chapter 721, Master and Disciple Fight. Proofreader, Papatonks. Dan Qingshan's surge of power covered the entire realm as it shook under it. The biting winds brushed past the exalted double dragons, forcing them to become grave as they faced this power. Hundreds of years had passed and Dan Qingshan, of course, had grown in power, so much so that they were having doubts of fighting him together. The people looked tense, and a bit excited even, at the screen, showing a scene that could only be described as a prelude to total destruction. 3 Genesis stage experts were about to fight. This was a once-in-a-blue-moon fight. Sheng, before we fight, I want to ask you something. Exalted by my began. Dan Qingshan grumbled something before finally saying, say it. After all these years, why did you come for the sword now? Did you meet someone strong or do you just want to rule someplace? Give me a reason. Exalted He Ran looked straight at him, waiting for an answer as well. Dan Qingshan squinted and said, must I say it? It's fine either way, since you're no longer our disciple. You have no reason to explain yourself to us. Exalted by my spoke coldly. Exalted He Ran stared hard at Dan Qingshan. We must have taught you that regardless of what you do, you should always have a reason for doing it, even if it's wrong. That way, you at least won't feel lost. As the Exalted spoke, Dan Qingshan felt he was in a particular mood. They were clearly asking Dan Qingshan if he still saw them as masters at his very core. They were testing his intentions for taking the sword and whether he was worthy of inheriting it. Dan Qingshan took a deep breath as he pondered, to be honest, 3 years later, I will have a life and death fight with the old freak from the central area. I'm sure that if I have the help of Western Land's treasure, the Atlas sword, I will win. Central Area's Sword Star Empire's invincible sword. Exalted by my gasped in disbelief. How did you end up messing with him? You're even having a life and death battle? Are you crazy? Exalted He Ran shook all over, his fists clenched tight as he cursed, rotten brat, you must be so damn cocky to think that being called the best in Western lands means you're the king of the world. You think that that freak is someone you can toy with? Why do you think 4 areas joined hands to resist the central area yet were still at a disadvantage? Dan Qingshan only took a long breath and made up his mind. Exalted by my saw his determination and asked, Sheng, you're not impulsive and should know when to step back. Why? A man's gotta do what a man's gotta do. Dan Qingshan held his head high as he sighed. What was it that I told Exalted before I left the Western lands? That I had finally found my path. The two nodded. Peace on this world. Yes, that is my path, that is her path. Dan Qingshen's eyes flashed. It was both of our hopes to create a better world. Ever since she died, I have gone crazy and I have fallen into despair. But then I thought to myself, rather than go mad from the pain and hatred, it'd be better to achieve this dream she wanted to see. That's why, for the past centuries, I have created such a place, a paradise between areas. Alas, nothing good lasts forever. My strength keeps all those petty thieves away, but I have been in constant conflict with the Central Area's Swordstar Empire's expansion, always wanting to wage war. I used to think that no matter how strong it was, my slice of heaven was insignificant, that they would at least talk with me on account of being a Genesis stage expert. Yet I did not expect that old freak to come straight for me and make a bet. If I lose, my land will be razed to the ground. Hundreds of years, gone. The Exalted picked up on his problem and said, "And the old monster is coming for you still?" Ha ha ha, that's right. Masters are the wisest. Dan Qingshen sighed. My place is only the size of a small empire. It has no riches and no grudge with anyone. How could happy normal people incite the wrath of others? How could they get the great Swordstar Empire to come after them? Unless that old bag of bones. Dan Qingshen's voice trailed off, switching to sending words instead. The Exalted sported an astonished look. Dan Qingshen sighed. The old guy has been in seclusion for hundreds of years, and now that he came out and is far stronger, he wants to go big. The four lands are in danger and I hope masters will be ready. With fortune, I saw that this time's Double Dragon gathering has some good seeds that might give the western lands some hope. The Exalted nodded and sighed, but then Exalted Heiran raised an eyebrow. I just don't know if I should give you the sword or not anymore. Ha ha ha, yeah, it's quite the conundrum. Without the sword, I'll lose for sure. But if you do give it to me, maybe it will become the weapon by which the western lands would run with blood. I'd be just as conflicted by this if I were masters. Dan Qingshen chuckled, then his power exploded once more. Since that's the case, just like the old agreement, strength will determine the victor. The Exalted nodded and said, strength it is. The two Exalted were showing off their strength as well, their dragon power tracing the lands and skies as it clashed with Dan Qingshen's fierce sword waves with loud noises. The space began to shake from the impact, about to crack under their power. The audience watched agape. Are these the strongest experts in the world? This is outstanding. If they fight, the world might be ruined. This was what everyone thought. Even if exaggerated, they knew a saying, the top of mortal domain are like gods. Only Zhuo Fan eased a breath, fight, don't talk. And don't solve the riddle of the sacred weapon. Though it was too soon to celebrate. It all came down to how they fought, and if they would settle this problem instead. So Zhuo Fan's eyes were fixed on the fight. Double Dragon Art, Double Dragon Emergence. The Exalted Double Dragons met their palms and shouted. Black and white powers came out as they spun on each other, just like a yin-yang symbol. The world was filled with a majestic power as it gathered around them in the form of a black and white roaring dragon. They then pushed out their palms and unleashed the dragon upon Dan Qingshen. The mighty force kept pushing him back. Dan Qingshen pointed his finger at the skies and a draconic roar sounded. A dragon revolved high above around his finger, as if it was climbing the heavens. The immense sword energy had reached its peak and gathered on his finger, forming an illusory atlas sword. The huge dragon roamed on this sword as it kept roaring under all of this immense power. The skies, the earth, everything was constantly shaking. Dragon cleaving art. Dan Qingshen shouted and brought his sword down upon the black and white dragon. The explosion from the impact was monumental. The skies dimmed, while the land around the sacred mine was leveled and barren. It went on for hundreds of miles, leaving in its wake an apocalypse. The crowd was overwhelmed. Just one blow from a Genesis stage expert unleashed such deadly power. Zhuo Fan and Yi Lin's fight was astonishing in its own right, but not as frightening as this. They still had a way to go before they could burn the world to cinders. Everyone paled after seeing such might for the first time. No wonder Dan Qingshen could come and go in the western lands 10 sects as he wished. One snap of his fingers can erase a sect. Chapter 722, Misunderstanding. Chapter 722, Misunderstanding. Proofreader, Papatonks. The two great powers clashed and released constant explosions as they were in deadlock. Even so, the powers slowly weakened as time passed. With a crack, Dan Qingshen's sword soon vanished, while the exalted double dragon's black and white dragon crumbled away. Yet just as the attacks collapsed, a trace of power zipped between sides. A powerful dragon force hit Dan Qingshen in the chest, making him groan and forcing him back as he spat blood whoosh, while two sharp sword waves whistled into the exalted. Unable to react, the waves passed through the exalted's shoulders and left two red lines as masters and disciple fought. It ended up with both sides suffering and neither getting the upper hand. The crowd was astounded. Dan Qingshen was the best in Western lands for a reason. Now, 2 against 1, and against his old masters, he still fought to a draw. This, however, left the three feeling complicated. Exalted Heiran glanced at his shoulder and sighed. "Shun, just leave. Old timer." Exalted by my looked at them, then at the sacred mine having lost its familiar feel, and sighed. Dan Qingshen's eyes shook. He wiped his mouth and looked at the imprint in his chest. He could feel his innards close to boiling as he sighed. He and the exalted would only end up hurting each other. He could not defeat them, thus he could not take the sword. The exalted are still thinking of Western lands peace, ha ha ha. Dan Qingshen shook his head, giving a deep bow to the exalted double dragons before vanishing. Seeing him leave, exalted double dragon frowned. "Old timer, will you just let him take the sword?" With no trace of it coming from the cave, that means he must have it. He made a big ruckus and called us out just to prove that he could take the sword openly. However, even if he loses, I don't think he'll leave the sword behind. Exalted Heiran shook his head and looked at his wound. 2 against 1, yet we're evenly matched. If he had taken out the sword, we'd have lost. Why didn't he? Exalted by my was worried. "Old timer, you're right. We had planned on giving him the sword, but just like he said, that old freak from the central area is on the move. If we don't have the land's treasure, what comes, will. So what if we had it? Won't the old freak have one as well?" Exalted Heiran shook his head. "When the old freak takes the central area's divine sword over to us, we'll still be of no match. It's better if we give it to Sheng, letting him fight for his beliefs. We'll have no regrets regardless of the outcome, since he's already stronger than us." Exalted by my side as he agreed. "Yeah, last time we didn't protect his beliefs and forced him to leave. At least now, we can make amends by letting him take the sword. We sealed the entrance at the heaven-reaching pavilion, yet never believed he would come out in the open and take the sword like this. Ha ha ha, what does it have to do with that old freak from the central area anyway? He just took it and left." Exalted by my seemed to have accepted this truth but then frowned. "But how on earth did he sneak in? Did he really slip in under our noses? Ha ha ha, he took the sword, so what difference does it make?" Exalted Heiran vanished. "We need to get in touch with the other 3 lands experts. Get ready for that old freak." Exalted by my raised an eyebrow and nodded, vanishing as well. Unfortunately, neither Dan Qingshen nor exalted double dragons figured out that it was just one giant misunderstanding. The exalted double dragons thought they lost, so they left Dan Qingshen thinking he already had the sword. But Dan Qingshen always thought the exalted knew he came here, so they took the sword on purpose, keeping it with them. Adding to that the draw, exalted Heiran let him leave, making him think this was their way of driving him away. Since he couldn't beat him, he wouldn't get the sword. That was why he left sadly. Thus, the prized Atlas sword of the Western lands became an enigma. Dan Qingshen thought it was with the exalted, while the exalted thought he had it. They were both wrong though, as it was on Zhuofan all along. When the exalted returned, they had the crowd disperse. Looking back at the screen, Zhuofan sighed. The misunderstanding took hold between them, and I am left getting away with it. Dan Qingshen was still oblivious he'd been made the scapegoat. Nothing but the lack of communication. Zhuofan sighed inside. Even though the two sides were master and disciple, since they broke it off, meeting again was a tense experience. The trio had to stick their pride out as well, so of course they ignored the trifles, leaving simple communication out of the equation. It was the perfect setup for a big misunderstanding. What Zhuofan had hoped all along. If Dan Qingshen had heard exalted Heiran's words after he left, he would have asked more about the sword and Zhuofan's plan would have unraveled. While it wouldn't happen on the spot, the doubt in Dan Qingshen would grow and would find him out sooner or later. A shame this expert is too prideful, too nice. Not winning meant he had no right to get the sword. Dan Qingshen thought so and admitted defeat, Leaving without a word, ha ha ha, this way I can move about without a care. Zhuo Fan snickered inside as he stuck his chin out. The fiends found it odd. What's got you so perky all of a sudden? Being the top middle 3 sect isn't a cause for celebration. Ha ha ha, Zhuo Fan quirked an eyebrow. Fiend Yang looked lost, but Exalted already announced our spot. How come you're happy only now? I just came to. Zhuo Fan's eyes darted all over as he smiled. Fiend Yang's eye twitched and rolled his eyes. This guy is being weird again. It's been said for an hour now and you're just reacting? There's no way he's happy over that. But if he doesn't want to say it, whatever. The guys shrugged, then shook their heads. Sometimes, Steward Zhuo was just plain weird and sometimes mysterious. They helped Zhuo Fan to get back to his room, planning on leaving once he recovered. They had completed the double dragon gathering mission and would be rewarded once they got back to the sect. The fiends couldn't wait to break the news back home. Zhuo Fan, get better while I settle the details with others about our bragging speech once we get home. Ha ha ha. Fiend Yang closed the door and laughed. Zhuo Fan merely smiled. The instant he was alone he heard someone. Kid, you'd best leave as well in a few days. I find it hard to leave you even though we met for a few days. Zhuo Fan jerked in fright. He wiped his head around to see Dan Qingshun disappointed and drowning his sorrow with wine. Senior, what are you doing back here? Zhuo Fan's heart skipped a beat and gulped as he forced a smile. He didn't find out anything, right? Zhuo Fan was worried the old guy might have spotted something that gave him away. Dan Qingshun watched him through drunken eyes and sighed. I failed in the end. The Exalted were on guard and took the sword. I could not take it. That can't be. I saw Senior wounding the Exalted. Who else in Western lands but Senior is fit to have that sword? He gave him a thumbs up and good flattery while being on guard as to why Dan Qingshun was back here again. Chapter 723, Treasure Your People. Chapter 723, Treasure Your People. Proofreader, Papatonks. Dan Qingshun smiled through hazy eyes as he cursed, rotten brat, enough of your flattery. A loss or a draw is still a loss, thus not worthy of the sacred sword. This will make matters so much worse in the next fight. Senior has another battle. Zhuo Fan probed. Dan Qingshun nodded, the strongest in the central area, invincible sword. Lasting 10 moves would be a feat in itself. Senior is so strong, but can't handle 10 of his moves. Just how strong is he? Zhuo Fan was astounded. Are the best in Western lands and the best in the central area so far apart? Dan Qingshun sighed and took a large gulp of wine. Kid, you're too green, young and cocky. But remember this, there's always someone stronger out there. What can the best in Western lands amount to when in the central area? He wouldn't even be in the top 10 experts. What? Zhuo Fan was shocked, not because of Dan Qingshun's disparity compared to the central area, but of the gap between areas. Zhuo Fan had been a demonic emperor from the sacred domain, there was hardly any expert he hadn't seen. Yet the sharp difference in power on the same continent left him stunned. It was like a 3-year-old holding huge wealth only to have a towering thug for a neighbor. Who'd ever feel safe? He would have been robbed blind ages ago, but why is the central area so strong? Dan Qingshun saw through him and mocked. Of the entire continent, only the central area differs from the other 4. Do you know why? Zhuo Fan showed he didn't. It's their structure. Dan Qingshun turned serious. The 4 lands are governed by sects, with hundreds of empires serving them. This makes them a loose force. Since when it comes to waging war, it's still the empires that are stronger. When did you ever hear sects going to war? Zhuo Fan nodded as he contemplated. Dan Qingshun continued. Here's where the central area is different. There's an old monster there and a huge empire, Swordstar Empire. Invincible Sword, its ancestor, had founded the empire 10,000 years ago. He is not only strong, but even swallowed all the nations and sects around him until he achieved this form, an area ruled entirely by one empire. An entire area with just one empire? Zhuo Fan was shocked. Now he knew why the central area was so strong with just a sole empire. Its development was much sharper than many conflicting empires. The fact that it was a single empire was an amazing feat by itself. The other 4 lands weren't like this at all. While all wanted to achieve it, they had no one to take the lead. Take Western lands for example. Exalted double dragons were tough, but they were just cultivators and lacked vision and a calculating mind. Dan Qingshan gave him a long look and patted his shoulder. Kid, I can tell you are a man of ambition, and even a trace of that old freak's nature. Lead your heroes, take your turf, but you best hurry it up and get stronger too. Central area is on the move. It will still take some time, but you're way too young. You're just out of time. You mean that the central area's action has nothing to do with me? Zhuo Fan started. Dan Qingshan smirked. That old freak took thousands of years to get his tiny empire to rule the entire central area. Now he's set his eyes on the world. Everyone is involved in this, you included. Even if you hide, can those girls hide as well? Can their empire, Tianyu, hide? Ha ha ha, the future of Western lands is yours. As a Western lands man, maybe the future will be your opponent's. But now, I hope you'll get ready and not regret what comes. Dan Qingshan stood up and bent his waist, about to leave. I best be going now. I've wasted enough time on a kid. I just hope the Western lands youths will grow. It will be up to fate if you'll get over this calamity. Zhuo Fan's heart sank. He just wanted to focus on cultivating and get back to sacred domain. But Dan Qingshan just said that chaos would soon envelop the 5 lands. He didn't care much, since he was a lone wolf. No one would find him if he wanted to hide. It was another matter for the Luo clan. It would be hard to not get dragged into this mess. Maybe I should get some things ready, just in case. Then I'll leave in peace. Zhuo Fan was deep in thought as Dan Qingshan was fading away, yet he did say one last thing. By the way, kid, you better take care of that girl. Treasure your people. Oh please, I'm a demon. Why would I care about some girl? Knowing who Dan Qingshan was speaking of, Zhuo Fan blushed. Ha ha ha, what does being demonic or righteous have to do with it? You're just one man. Better not live to regret it later. Dan Qingshan vanished at long last. Zhuo Fan rolled his eyes, yet he now had more to worry about. It'll be hard to meet again after the Double Dragon gathering. Just that my path. Zhuo Fan closed his eyes. 3 days later, Zhuo Fan was in his room cultivating, his wounds halfway to being healed. It was around this time the sect teams were leaving. Demon Soul Sect and Sword God Sect had come to say goodbye to Zhuo Fan, wishing him a quick recovery. Zhuo Fan nodded with a smile. It looks to me we're practically relatives with these sects. It'll be up to Kuei Lang and the others now, on how they cherish their allies. He could now return to the Luo clan at ease. Zhuo Fan, Shuang'er, and I are returning to Tianyu. When will you leave? Zhuo Fan opened his door to find that it was Yongning. Zhuo Fan frowned. I've yet to recover and I still need around 10 days before I leave at ease. At ease? Who is after you? Yongning started. Zhuo Fan smiled. I don't know, since I've got many enemies. Better to be safe than sorry. The 2 girls nodded. Zhuo Fan did gain plenty of enemies this time and should be ready just in case. It wouldn't do to let the enemy make use of his wounded state. Then we will go on ahead. The girls waved with a smile, their eyes shining brightly. Zhuo Fan found it odd and pondered. Aren't you 2 girls afraid of going back to Tianyu alone? Why don't you wait a few days and we'll go together? Really? Yongning perked up. Shuang'er pulled her clothes, then she came to and smiled. It's fine. Going back with Sister Ching Cheng, we'll be talking about plenty of girl stuff. Like how to figure out your mind, win your favor. A blushing Shuang'er rushed to cover her mouth. Is Mystical Heaven sect leaving as well? Zhuo Fan frowned after hearing her. Dan Qingshan's words came to him and so he stood up to leave. The 2 hurried after him. They soon arrived at Mystical Heaven sect's place. The disciples were gathered around, ready to leave. Shui Ruohua noticed him and all the girls turned to Chu Qingcheng. Sister Qingcheng, he's here. Dana got Chu Qingcheng's attention, shaking a little. Chu Qingcheng turned around to meet Zhuo Fan's cold eyes. She smiled and walked closer. How are you feeling? Much better. Why only ask now? Isn't it a little late? Ha ha ha, doesn't Steward Zhuo dislike chatter, always being alone? How come you're blaming me for not seeing you? Chu Qingcheng teased. Zhuo Fan looked deep into Chu Qingcheng's eyes. Give me half a year and I'll give you an answer for back then. Zhuo Fan then left, but Chu Qingcheng was stunned. She then smiled, her eyes filled with tears of joy. Turning around, she floated back to her team like a butterfly. The others were stumped at their icy teammate being lively and having a bright smile. What did that guy say? Sister Qingcheng, what's wrong? Dana hesitated. Chu Qingcheng beamed with joy. He said he'll give me an answer. He finally faltered. The others were lost. What does that mean? That was something only Chu Qingcheng knew. It was a question she asked Zhuofan a long time ago. Xian Xiaoyu looked on with cold eyes and clenched fists. Half a year, is it? Perfect. Chapter 724, Yun Clan Ancestral Home. Chapter 724, Yun Clan Ancestral Home. Proofreader, Papatonks. 10 days later, Zhuofan opened his door to take a deep breath of fresh air. He was in a better mood now that his wounds were healed. What awaited him outside was his team, the 9 disciples and 3 fiends of demon scheming sect. They had always been waiting for Zhuofan to get better and get home these days. The other sects had already gone, leaving them behind. They came last and now they were leaving last, though the mood was completely different. They were no longer tense, but jubilant. Zhuofan, you're the only one left. Can we go now? Fiend Yang grinned at Zhuofan. I've sent the sector sending Jade already, saying that we'll get back in 2 months. But, hehe, I have yet to give them the good news. Zhuofan raised an eyebrow and noticed Fiend Yang's rotten smile. You'll be making them sick with worry. Ha ha ha, that'll make things more interesting. While we risked our lives here, they'd just been casually waiting for the news. That's too easy for them. Fiend Yang winked at Zhuofan. You're going to leave anyway. You should use this chance to get back at those old fools now while you still can. Besides, once we sent them the great news, their towering fury would just fizzle out, right? The others laughed along. Zhuofan shrugged. Fine, I'm leaving anyway, so I'll just take this burden. Take it as my prank. Ha ha ha, wonderful. That's our great steward. Fiend Yang patted his shoulder and the others nodded with soft eyes. They knew their days with Zhuofan were running out. Zhuofan, are you leaving the demon scheming sect? A girl cried out. Zhuofan turned to see Yongning, who suddenly looked at him in shock. Where are you going? You better give us a clear location or we won't be able to find you. Zhuofan's eyes softened. You don't have to look for me. Once I finish reporting to the demon scheming sect, I'll be going home to Tianyu. Really? The girls cheered. Zhuofan nodded. Of course, why else did you think I asked you to wait? Forget Mystical Heaven's sect and come with us. Once I finish over at the sect, we'll be going home together so you won't meet any trouble on the way. The girls bobbed their heads in elation. With Zhuofan back in the Luo clan, the girls would no longer have to suffer the bitter loneliness of being so far apart, but the fact that Chu Qingcheng couldn't come along made them sad. No one else knew Zhuofan better than her. Even though they were love rivals, for her not to be around Zhuofan, they thought it was a great loss. Actually, Chu Qingcheng's graceful stance had moved the girls. If they could all go together, it would be so much better now. Let's set off, Zhuofan shouted, breaking their thoughts. Seeing them all go, the girls caught up, but then Shuanga stalled and her eyes turned black as they reflected the starry sky. Her heart throbbed in her chest and she was gasping for breath. What's wrong, Shuanga? Yongning started in worry. Zhuofan frowned, coming over. What happened? I don't know. My heart suddenly became frantic. I'm better now. Shuanga looked lost as she shook her head. She felt a sudden danger, as if someone was coming for her. But then the feeling went away as quick as it came. Zhuofan looked around the area with a careful gaze before setting his mind at ease. It must be that Shuanga is unwell. Once we return, she'll be getting better. And so, they left the Double Dragon Manor, unaware that Shuanga's frantic heart was an omen of the future. Bam! In a forest, a rock covered in moss was pulverized. The sun's bright rays shone down deep in the dark and humid cave, long hidden from the world. 2 panting figures stood before it in joy. Second Prince, we finally found the Yun clan ancestral home. Ha ha ha, a mere profound heaven expert, wearing all black, looked at the other in glee. Grinning, the youth nodded, clenching the yellow silk tight in his hand. So many years and now we finally found this accursed place. Big brother, imperial father, once I crack the Yun clan ancestral home's secret, I will find the best in western lands and will return the lands to the Yuan clan. I will avenge you. And you, old third, dishonorable pig, your days are at an end. Ha ha ha. The youth cackled like mad, his eyes consumed by hatred. The guy in black sighed, nodding to himself. The lies Crown Prince weaved had the second prince seek revenge rather than instruct us. He was truly wise. Only hatred can make one seek revenge. These men were Crown Prince's men. They had no feud with the imperial family or Yuan Song. After the Crown Prince's death, all of his loyal men were wanted across the nation. Scurrying like rats for so many years had worn the fight out of them that went double for those who went with the second prince after the Yun clan ancestral home. After the bitter life they had been through the past years, it proved to be too much for most as they left one by one, leaving him all alone. Even so, even he had to beat a hasty retreat against some of the dangers they faced now, thanks to the Crown Prince beguiling Yuan Yong into exacting revenge. With his help, they finally arrived. This was just another proof of how hatred could drive a person to no end. If it was their mission, they would have long abandoned it. Only the second prince persevered. To restore the empire without fail, the guy in black even found himself admiring the second prince. Though the clueless royalty was being played like a puppet on a string looking ahead, the guy in black took the lead. Your Highness, I'll be scouting ahead. Stay behind me and be careful. Thank you, Hei Ying. Second prince nodded, smiley face. The name is lit. Black Hawk. After years of toil, the second prince finally shed his overconfidence as an imperial prince. Finally showing respect to the wise, the guy in black was touched. Your Highness, you're too kind. It's my duty. You're too humble. Hei Ying, without you, I would have never reached here. Being close all their journey, the second prince sighed. To find the Yun clan ancestral home, we've been through so much danger, and lost our way more times than I can count. We have even been trapped again and again. In the end, how many died, how many are left? Now I am alone, with you as my sole companion to share life and death with. From now on, you are my brother. The guy in black shook, touched to the core. He never imagined that the second prince they were ordered to use as a pawn would treat him so. He felt ashamed. He wanted to spill the beans about everything and not let His Highness suffer for another's revenge. Everyone had a heart, even the Crown Prince's die-hard followers. Having spent so many years with the second prince, he had a change of heart. He couldn't bear to see his new master being hurt for following this stupid hatred. But that would mean the Crown Prince's final wish. Your Highness, actually, Hei Ying was conflicted, frowning as he wanted to say something. In his moment of carelessness, he stepped onto something and fell plop. In the darkness, Hei Ying suddenly vanished and the second prince cried out, Hei Ying. What followed was him falling as well, and beneath him was nothing but utter blackness, a dark hole swallowing him whole. Chapter 725, Emperor Yun's Fragment. Chapter 725, Emperor Yun's Fragment. Proofreader, Papatonks. Tilda. Two sharp yells broke the silent darkness, yet only their own ears could hear them. Second prince and Hei Ying then looked around, but beyond the eternal darkness there was only more black. Hei Ying, can you fly out? Second prince asked. He shook his head, filled with dread. No, this cave is just weird, preventing me, a profound heaven expert, from flying. Yet we're still falling. Just when will we reach the end? We're finished. With such a deep cave, once we hit the ground, we'll be plastered. My life will return to the heavens. Second prince wailed, filled with resentment. He hadn't gotten revenge yet. How could he die just like that? Hei Ying sighed, biting back the words that threatened to come out. Though he would die having never fulfilled his revenge, it was a notch better to die for one's ideal. While telling him the truth would mean saying he was a pawn in the hand of a dead crown prince for years now, that would be even more devastating. Letting him go in peace is better. He's been bitter enough these past years already. Hei Ying sighed, Your Highness, you've spared no effort these years. Your Highness and Crown Prince know your devotion and will rest in the underworld. How can he rest? The nation isn't a nation. Yuan clan's lands are in the hands of another and I couldn't do anything. Imperial father, big brother, they'll never know rest. Second prince started shedding tears. It's because I'm too weak to get back the ancestors' lands. It's I who failed in earning imperial father and big brother's deep love. Second prince sobbed, making Hei Ying shake his head as he waited to meet his doom. This was the only way to repay his two masters' care. Tilda. However, there was an odd sound and the two suddenly slowed down before finding themselves afloat in pitch blackness. The two were stunned and looked around. I am one of the 10 ancient emperors, Emperor Yun's remnant, sent by her to guard my clan. Are you the sons of my clan, coming to pay your respects? A deafening voice rocked their ears, threatening to blow their eardrums. A white image hundreds of meters wide appeared. He looked like an aged immortal, with power and wisdom. He had silvery flowing hair, a white beard, and a deep and profound aura. The entire void was filled with glittering stars. The next second, flowing in a mystical pattern, the two stared agape at the display. Who's he? He's like a god walking on this world, holding everything in his palm. He can't just be a damn human. Skipping over Zhuofan, have they ever seen someone so awesome anywhere on this continent? Even Danqing Shen couldn't hold a candle to this guy. Yun clan's ancestral home hid such an astonishing expert. I can't frickin' believe it. Emperor Yun frowned. If you are my descendants, you may take refuge with me from any difficulty. If not, trespassers shall be forever buried in my clan's forbidden land to atone for your crimes. What? The two cried out. Only Yun clansmen could come here, if they wanted to live. The two were frantic, with the second prince having no shame as he said, Ancestor, I'm from the Yun clan. I'm Yun Yong. He Ying's face twitched and he sighed, this guy changes tunes too fast. He even renounced his name. Then again, being chased for so many years, he lost his arrogance as a prince. All he ever cares about is survival, even using a sharp tongue. Ancestor, I'm also from the Yun clan. I'm Yun Ying. He Ying cupped his hands. Emperor Yun mocked, it doesn't matter if you say you are. I will be the judge of that. Emperor Yun's eyes shot prismatic lights as it scanned the two. Humph, my Yun clan have mystic eyes that can read the heavens. Yours are normal and you think you can pretend to be of my clan? After the scan was over, Emperor Yun snorted, common fools, die for trespassing in the Yun clan's forbidden ground. The pitch-black world began to burn, as stars started falling on the two. Thousands of city-wide bright lights were coming down on them at full force. With so many coming to plaster them, there was no way two puny profound heaven experts could take it, not when even ethereal stage experts would have a hard time. The two panicked in fear. Fortunately, the thick and impenetrable skin second prince grew over these torturous years in search for revenge was finally put to good use. Wait, we are just Yun clan's average clansmen. Only the clan head has awakened those eyes. Humph, wrong. Not just the Yun clan head is able to awaken them. Only a Yun clansman who does is a true Yun clansman. Emperor Yun spat, my blood allows the awakening of a single person in every generation of my clan. That is my successor. Everyone else, even if from the Yun clan, is a stranger. Don't you know that only the clan head can come here? Even as Yun clansman, you only came to your death. Emperor Yun finished just as the incoming starfall was about to pulverize the two home invaders. Second prince gnashed his teeth and his eyes flashed. He took out Yun Xuanzhi's eye and said, we've come out of clan head's final wish. This is our proof. Whoosh. The stars halted and soon vanished. He Ying closed his eyes and shivered. Second prince's hands shook as well, waiting to be erased from this world. However, death did not come. He watched as a pair of eyes stared down at the orb in his hand. It's the mystic eye of my Yun clan. But since it's just proof, I can only agree to one request. 1. Startled, the two were jubilant. They turned it all around. Emperor Yun switched from being their greatest enemy to their strongest backer. That was just too sudden. Didn't he doubt where this eye came from? Though it worked in their favor, why look for some Danqing Shen when we have this guy to raise the world? So the second prince bowed and whined, Ancestor, my empire has been taken by an evil spawn. I hope Ancestor will set things right. Help you restore the nation? Emperor Yun quirked an eyebrow. Second prince bobbed his head and the emperor shook his, denied. Why? Didn't you say you'll agree to one request? With your power, this will be as easy as breathing. Second prince complained. Emperor Yun said, I told you, I am Emperor Yun's remnant left by her to protect our clan and show it the path forward. I cannot leave, thus, I cannot help you. What can you do, then? Second prince was annoyed and shouted. He Ying jerked and hurriedly pulled his hand, Master, don't get carried away. He can't leave, but we're here stuck with him. He's the boss and you better not anger him. It'll be so easy to kill us like squashing bugs. Second prince finally came to his senses and cupped his hands. Forgive me, Ancestor, I got carried away. I just want to know how you could help us. Read the heavens and show you the way. Ask your questions and I shall answer all I can. Emperor Yun's heavy words fell. Chapter 726. Back to the sect. Chapter 726. Back to the sect. Proofreader. Papatonks. He Ying's eyes lit up and held his hand out, pointing with a trembling finger at the second prince's ring. Catching his drift, the second prince showed a painting. The lands of our nation. Second prince shouted, Ancestor, please tell me where the best in western lands, Danqing Shen, is. Can I find him? Tilda. Emperor Yun's eyes shifted and became like the starry sky. The stars around him were on the move as well, releasing their aura and making the two home invaders step back in fright. Danqing Shen is in the central area. You will find him in the imperial capital of the Sword Star Empire. He will fulfill your wish. The stars halted and silence once again reigned after Emperor Yun spoke gravely, but there was now doubt in his eyes, something the two below were blind to. Second prince cheered, Ancestor, is it true? Don't call me Ancestor. I have read the heavens and know you're not Yun clansman. I also know everything that your clan did. But I am but Emperor Yun's remnant and have to follow the rules. Since you brought the Yun clan's mystic eye, I have shown you the way. Emperor Yun's flat tone came. Second prince's heart sank, and he was getting nervous. He only breathed easier seeing him still calm. Since he was a remnant, he had no feelings. If all Emperor Yun was here, he'd be watching their entrails dripping down the walls after swatting them for trying to con him. Not that his little mind could figure that one out, thinking this big shot was nagging. So he bowed and braced himself. Senior, when will I be able to meet Danqing Shen? That's your second question that I won't answer. You better leave. Eyeing them with a flat look, Emperor Yun flicked his wrist. A gale formed and the two were blown away and were now kissing the ground in the most unpleasant way. When they finally woke up, they were shocked. Before them was a lofty mountain, with a peak hiding behind the clouds and snow high on its sides. He Ying cried, Your Highness, how did we get here? How are we at the foot of the mountain? We've been climbing. For 3 whole years. Second prince sighed. 3 years of toil as we worked our way through dangers and lost trails. 1,000 died, 1,000 left, leaving only us to carry on. I can't believe that Emperor Yun would take us back down with a flick of his wrist. He's beyond monstrous. He Ying nodded, never imagining one of the 4 pillars had such a freakish backer. If this freak could move, the world would be his oyster. Sparing one last long look at the snowy peak, He Ying sighed, so many years, so many deaths. All but for a few words from an old man. This result, ha ha ha. That's more than enough. We now have a way to get revenge. Second prince shouted as he strutted towards the central area. As the Yun clan's ancestor, his prediction must be right. We finally found Danqing Shen and a way to regain our nation. Zhuo Fan, Luo clan, and the old third, you will all pay for stealing our land, ha ha ha. Second prince could practically see the glory of victory, and taste it. He Ying stared at him and followed in silence. Never mind. If revenge is all that's driving him, let him have it. Maybe when he sits on the throne, it won't be too late to tell him. Maybe he'll thank the crown prince then for this revenge. That was how these 2 loners walked forward to restore their nation, unaware as they left that Emperor Yun was still hovering in that black space, the doubt in his eyes only increasing. That's odd. His goal is to get revenge on the Luo clan, Zhuo Fan, and his third brother. But the Luo clan and his brother's destiny are clear, only Zhuo Fan's fate is unreadable. Can it be that he lives outside fate? That will make him a huge variable. Emperor Yun sighed and vanished, letting the darkness consume everything in this domain. 2 months later, Zhuo Fan's team was back before their sect at long last. Xie Wuyue and the elders were waiting for ages. Ha ha ha. Wuyue, what a grand welcome I see. Fiend Yang laughed, as if basking in their adoration. Yet Xie Wuyue glared back instead. He flashed in his face and stomped bam. The resounding boom sent Fiend Yang flying like a cannonball. The ball of flesh sped through the air and smacked into a cliff, leaving a man-shaped hole in it. The disciples, ready to celebrate with their elders, stood stock still. Did we do something wrong? Why is the sect leader so pissed? Giving them a glare, he was filled with bloodthirst. Watching the cliff tumble down, Fiend Yang came out of the rubble, barking, for God's sake. Are you a sect leader or a lunatic? We've risked our lives in the Double Dragon Manor for the sect's glory, and this how you repay me? What did I ever do to you? You got the nerve to ask. Xie Wuer snorted. 2 months ago you sent me a sending jade, telling me that you'll be back in 2 months, not giving me any details as to what happened. You got some nerve, making me unable to sit still all this time. You damn fatso deserve more than just a light kick. The others chuckled. Ah, so that's why, it's because of the sending jade that sect leader is pissed. He should know what happened at the Double Dragon gathering yet was kept in suspense all this time. Fiend Yang grinned. Oh. Did I forget to mention it? Bullshit, how can you forget something so big? Even if you forget to write your will, you can never forget this. Xie Wuer snorted. Talk. Did we lose so much that we got last place in the lower 3 sects? Is that why you didn't say anything? Yu Ling and the others giggled. They couldn't believe their sect leader had so little faith in them. He's sure to get the shock of his life. The disciples snickered. Fiend Yang was also grinning, though he was still mincing words. What do you think, Wuer? Think your ass. Xie Wuer glared, then turned to Zhuo Fan. But the guy walked into the sect with some 2 girls shouting for 2 laboris. Zhuo Fan pointed at the girls and said, settle them in. Yes, Steward Zhuo. The 2 bowed. Zhuo Fan was yet to rule over the demon scheming sect, but his word was law in the labor office. Above even the elders, the laboris got down to following his orders despite there being a throng of elders and venerables around. Even the sect leader on top, Xie Wuer, was outraged. Zhuo Fan, who said you can bring some foreign girls into the sect? That's against the rules. Just coming and going. Didn't you agree to let him go after all the fighting? Fiend Yang held his shoulder and smiled. Besides, the kid got most of the credit at Double Dragon gathering. Letting him do whatever before leaving ain't much. Xie Wuer was now interested and turned to face him. How did it go? What do you think? Fiend Yang quirked an eyebrow, starting the posturing all over again. Xie Wuer's face twitched and he clenched his fists as a scorching fire burned in his heart, a volcano ready to pop. Chapter 727, Sect Celebration. Chapter 727, Sect Celebration. Proofreader, Papatonks. Xie Wuer squinted and the anger in his eyes burned hotter. Fatty Yang, better give me that explanation right now, or so help me, I'll make you suffer if you keep showing off, regardless of our friendship. Easy, easy, I'll tell you for sure, ha ha ha. Fiend Yang smiled and whispered in Xie Wuer's ear, actually, we. What? Xie Wuer was bug-eyed. Say that again. Ha ha ha, I knew you'd make that face. No one would believe our ever-cold demon scheming sect leader. Xie lost his cool. Laughing it up, Fiend Yang turned to the oldies, shouting, I'm saying that at the Double Dragon gathering, we became the top middle 3 sect and brought home 10,000 sacred stone. Are you for real? The oldies were frozen in place, sporting a dumb and incredulous look as they looked at the disciples. The demon scheming sect was but a lower 3 sect. How the hell did it get to being the top middle 3 sect? This is insane. Venerable Sure, the leader of the inner sect's oldies, was just as stumped. Never in their wildest dreams would they have thought this time's team would come back with any success, yet they didn't feel like celebrating. Feeling downcast instead, the Double Dragon gathering team was made of elite labor office's disciples. It had nothing to do with the inner sect. That meant the labor office would become more valuable and more important now. He bet Xie Wuer would soon use this credit to announce the labor office would receive all resources while his inner sect would crumble. Venerable Sure, one elder spoke with worry. Venerable Sure said nothing as his eyes flashed with a calculative glimmer. No matter, there's fortune in disaster. We still have to play along. However, I must say that Zhuo Fan is incredible. If he weren't the sect leader's man, I would actually admire him. Ha ha ha. Glancing at the calm Zhuo Fan, Venerable Sure had a crafty smile. The others looked lost. Why is Venerable Sure praising the enemy when the sect leader is about to throw the inner sect to the curb? Xie Wuer was out of it for a couple of minutes after Fiend Yang's news. When he came to at long last, he glared and smiled as he grabbed his fat arm. Fatty Yang, is that true? You're not fooling around, are you? Who would joke about something so huge? Fiend Yang grinned as he cursed. Besides, your bug-eyed look at our strong disciples isn't becoming of a top middle 3 sect. Fiend Yang came to the disciples and put on a smug look. As if they got so strong all because of his dedicated training. Fiend Yin and Fiend Gui shook their heads. Kuei Lang's side stuck out their chests, of course, releasing their aura and pride. The others' faces twitched. They could not believe it as they watched the returned disciples with eyes as wide as saucers. They didn't look at it at first, but now they saw it. Just how long has it been? These little guys' strength is unrecognizable. Except for 3 in the 6th layer radiant stage, the other 9 were in the ethereal stage. Just what the hell brought on this miracle? Venerable Qi and Bai were ecstatic. 4 of those 6 were related to them by Lian, and Qi Changlong were their grandchildren, while Yu Ling and Kuei Lang were their disciples. In one move, they had 4 extra ethereal stage experts under them. That was sure to make them look good as hell. They were also qualified to work for his faction, consolidating their position. The labor office's oldies looked at these bright disciples with beaming smiles. Only the inner sect faction stood there glum from envy and embarrassment. This kind of credit never happened before. Yet it didn't have a damn thing to do with them. What none noticed was a pair of eyes from Venerable Shi's faction that never looked away from Gui Hu. It was Grand Elder. I was right in making you enter the labor office. You're now far sharper than before. Grand Elder smiled in pride. Hold on, let's all calm down first. As the crowd became noisier, Fiend Yang started shouting. Everyone settled down and spoke seriously. People, our success at the Double Dragon Gathering, the great improvement of our disciples, are all due to one man. Labor Office's steward, Shuo Fan. Roar. The oldies went wild again, looking at Shuo Fan in veneration. Even the angry Xie Wuyue was now filled with joy. He made the best move of his life when he got this kid to the sect. For thousands of years and tens of sect leaders, finally, in his lifetime, the demon scheming sect had become the head middle 3 sect. This merit was monumental. Even the ever-cold Xie Wuyue started smiling. Although, in the middle of their excitement, Fiend Yang's tune changed. You should also know that desperate times call for desperate measures. These kids got to improve so much so fast through many deadly perils. Those that hadn't succeeded, well, you can tell what happened to them. The rest now realized Fiend Yang's words. To get these guys to grow up fast, Shuo Fan used life and death to train them. Brave the danger and one would become a worldly expert. Fail and you'd be nothing but bones on the road. But weren't those casualties the babies of some oldies? This hatred was falling right on Shuo Fan. Fiend Yang said this to show Shuo Fan's feats. Without him training the other disciples, they wouldn't have gotten their flashy new rank. So he was also telling the oldies not to look for revenge. Your disciples died for the sect. However, while they got his meaning, some were still hit hard by the loss of their precious disciples. Xie Wuyue turned heavy and said, before setting off, I had appointed Shuo Fan as my representative, bearing my power. His word was my word. If you're looking for revenge, blame me. I have said it already, Double Dragon Gathering is of grave importance to the sect, not a place where you can butt in to gain some perks. They deserved their fate. But since the success has been so amazing, I'll be generous even to them for all their efforts. Sect leader is brilliant. Fiend Yang shouted and clapped. The oldies' grief had now become a sacrifice to the sect, though all here knew even alive, those disciples couldn't do a thing at the gathering. Xie Wuyue said this to be fair. As for being generous, how could one be to a dead guy? That benefit would be given to their masters, no? That is, a token to soothe their hard feelings. The oldies were silent. Wasn't it obvious for one to give his life to the sect? So they bowed in respect. Sect leader is brilliant. Shuo Fan's pesky troubles were now washed away by Fiend Yang's timely intervention. It was the least he could do for Shuo Fan. He knew the grudges of demonic cultivators. Once he left the sect, he had no one to protect him from those oldies' revenge, so simmering down those flames of hatred before he left was perfect. Shuo Fan got his meaning but didn't care. He only chuckled at Fiend Yang. As thanks for his efforts, less trouble is always better. We'll be holding a sect celebration for having become a middle 3 sect, even the top one. We'll hold a feast for 3 days straight. Xie Wuyue saw that all was settled and got excited as he laughed. The rest cheered. Chapter 728, Testing Dangers. Chapter 728, Testing Dangers. Proofreader, Papatonks. I told you, when we fought the head of the 9 sects, Ultimate Clarity Sect, there were many dangers. Besides the best talent in Western lands, Wu Qingqiu, there was also that freak Yi Lin. TCH, that power was really scary. Even Zhuo Fan was tense. At that time I was the most in danger as I told them how to face such a monster. In the main hall, all the elders and venerables attended. Wine flowed freely in these 3 days and everyone had red faces and hazy looks. Except for the disciples who went on this trip, who were standing at the same table as them, the other disciples were feasting outside the main hall. Fiend Yang finally got to make use of his winding and drawn-out silver tongue as he retold the events of Double Dragon Gathering. The others were amazed. Hold on, Fiend Yang, you've said it 5 times already. But didn't you always say that Steward Zhuo earned the greatest credit? Why does it sound like he didn't do anything while all the glory was thanks to your brilliant leadership? Is that how you got to the top middle 3 sect? And did Steward Zhuo really beat Yi Lin according to your plan? Yep. Steward Zhuo has the greatest credit, but that is one of a fighter, while I paved their way to success outside the ring with my plans and cunning, ha ha ha. Fiend Yang's eyes darted all over, still talking big. The disciples snickered, but remained silent. Fiend Yang sure likes to brag. I must admit, he even got them all looking amazed by his speech. Among the avid listeners, some were highly skeptical. How come we never noticed Fiend Yang likes to blow his horn? So they looked to another. Steward Zhuo, is what the fatso said true? Zhuo Fan turned to see Fiend Yang giving him signals galore while pleading and shaking his head. Zhuo Fan ignored his nonsense. Sure is. Under Fiend Yang's bright leadership, we finally earned our spot as top middle 3 sect. We wouldn't have made it half as far without him. The rest gave the fatty an incredulous look. This guy's actually that good. He actually got to conduct all the fights. Fiend Yang stuck out his chin in pride. I'm the real hero here. Only the disciples shook their heads and sighed. While the 2 girls sitting across from Zhuo Fan were giggling to themselves. They've seen Shameless, but not to this level, showing off before the whole crowd. But since Zhuo Fan didn't care, the girls, outsiders, didn't poke holes in the fatty's theatrics. Did Elder Yuan return yet? Zhuo Fan asked Kuei Lang. Ever since he came back 3 days ago, he couldn't wait to find Elder Yuan to talk to him about the heart. He really needed an answer to his questions, because Chu Qingcheng was waiting for his response in the mystical heaven sect, yet there was no sign of Elder Yuan around. Some laborious said he's out on sect business. He'd be back in months or maybe years. Zhuo Fan shook his head. Years? He could only wait for a couple of months. If he didn't get an answer, he couldn't give her a reply. He didn't know if Elder Yuan would even answer him, but he was the only one he knew that could. Cupping his hands, Kuei Lang spoke. Steward Zhuo, I just heard that Elder Yuan still isn't back. It's fine. While I wait for Elder Yuan, I'll have a talk with Xie Wuyue. Zhuo Fan sighed and walked out. Seeing him leave, they knew he was going to the sect leader for his freedom. They all sighed. Only the girls were cheerful, eager to have Zhuo Fan back. Yongning was crafty in this. Now she would take the credit before Luo Yunchang that she got Zhuo Fan home. We'll see if Miss Luo will be able to compete with me. Hey. Knock tilde. Zhuo Fan went to sect leader's home and saw Xie Wuyue smiling. He looked at the green storage ring with a lost gaze, sometimes chuckling. He woke up when he heard the knocking. Xie Wuyue was startled to see Zhuo Fan outside his door and frowned. Zhuo Fan, you've done great in the Double Dragon Gathering. What are you doing here instead of celebrating? Visiting a miser. He took a seat before him like he owned the place, and Zhuo Fan pointed at the ring. 10,000 sacred stones has you looking so dumb? Xie Wuyue was ticked off. Just 10,000? Ha ha ha, you're talking as if you got more, just 2,000. You heard that. Fiend Yang likes to talk too much, so I had Fiend Yin report instead. Xie Wuyue sighed and nodded. You're really something, kid, to get even the exalted to look at you, even making a special rank just for you and getting 2,000 sacred stones. Even if I don't officially make you the next sect leader successor, the entire sect would not sit still until they know it's you who will be sitting in my chair. Xie Wuyue stared hard at Zhuo Fan, but he had no reaction. Xie Wuyue, we talked about this. After the Double Dragon Gathering, our deal is done. Going home? Xie Wuyue's brow shook, his heart unsettled as he showed a sneaky smile. To what, the Luo clan? You mean to tell me demon scheming sect can't compare to a measly mortal clan? Ha ha ha, having come back with so much merit, You will be the next sect leader after me. With the sacred stones, in a century, we'll become a true middle three sect. A tiny mortal clan would mean even less then. You will be king here. Now you're telling me being stuck as a butler for the Luo clan is way better? Zhuo Fan gave him a long look. Where I like to go, is my business. No one can change that. You better not break your word, sect leader Xie. Xie Wuyue said nothing, but his sharp eyes stabbed into him like daggers. But then he shrugged. Actually, letting you stay was thinking of your future. After being on Double Dragon Manor's list, you'd be going even higher. You might even be at the top of the Western lands. But since you're set on leaving, I won't stop you. Xie Wuyue waved him off, looking disappointed as he sighed. People always work to better themselves. Yet I never saw someone so complacent like you. Zhuo Fan, you'll be sure to regret it. That's none of your concern. Zhuo Fan rolled his eyes and walked out. Just as he left, Xie Wuyue muttered to himself, ha ha ha, he left at last. The sect isn't big enough for the both of us. Sigh, Zhuo Fan, if you had shown the slightest interest in my position, Xie Wuyue's eyes flashed with bloodthirst. Back at the feast, Zhuo Fan looked at the girls. Get ready, we'll leave right after the feast. So soon? Kuei Lang and the others were stunned. Zhuo Fan nodded. Xie Wuyue was good at covering up his intent, but he was more than familiar with that kind of baiting. He was paying attention to every last word Xie Wuyue said and every meaning they had told him to leave, to not aim for the sect leader's position. He believed that if he showed the slightest interest in the chair, Xie Wuyue would have went for the kill. He didn't know Xie Wuyue's cultivation, and since this was the demon scheming sect, Xie Wuyue ruled. Once a fight broke out, Zhuo Fan was at a disadvantage, so he honored his own word and left. As for Elder Yuan, Zhuo Fan frowned. Kuei Lang, though I'm leaving and no longer of the demon scheming sect, I hope you can do something for me. Just say the word, Steward Zhuo. Kuei Lang cupped his hands. When Elder Yuan returns, stall him, then send me a jade slip. I'll be here before you know it. No problem, Steward Zhuo. Kuei Lang nodded. Zhuo Fan stood up and left with the girls. But just then, a laborer rushed into the main hall. Halt, this is the Elder's feast. Disciples can't enter. One attendant barred his way. The guy shouted, I've come to give a message to Steward Zhuo. Elder Yuan is back. Zhuo Fan shook and frowned, then he brightened up, just in time. Chapter 729, Advice. Chapter 729, Advice. Proofreader, Papatonks. Elder Yuan. Shouts were heard in the rundown area of the labor office as Zhuo Fan rushed to a shabby door. The door opened with a creak as a familiar figure greeted him. Elder Yuan sighed and patted his chest. Oh, so it's Steward Zhuo. What's got you so anxious? You're scaring this old man. I thought I missed giving out Wang Erma's pill. It's not that I didn't want to give him, but he did a poor job on his errands and the executive punished him. Elder Yuan. Zhuo Fan cut him off and rolled his eyes. Elder Yuan scratched his head. Oh, right, Steward Zhuo is a man of ambition and has no time for trifles. Oh, I almost forgot. I heard that Steward Zhuo earned great credit in the Double Dragon gathering. You should be out there celebrating and not run here. Elder Yuan, I'm leaving. Zhuo Fan interrupted him off again, startled. Elder Yuan said, leaving? Where? Home. Zhuo Fan sighed. I already talked with Xie Wuyue. I have done my part and the demon scheming sect is now a middle three sect. He also let me go. Is that so? Elder Yuan closed his eyes and sighed in disappointment. Elder Yuan, I hope to say my goodbye to you before I leave. You are the only one I respect in this sect, and the only one that understands me. Zhuo Fan looked at Elder Yuan's dark face and sighed. Also, I wanted to ask you an important question. I fear that only you can give me a good answer. Elder Yuan opened his eyes and smiled. He was no longer sad and was back to his kind self. Tell me then. If I can help Steward Zhuo, then it's my honor. Elder Yuan is too nice. Zhuo Fan bowed slightly, and was a bit tense as he began. Elder Yuan, can demonic cultivators know love? Elder Yuan was stumped for a second. Why love? You mean, familial, friendship, or? The last one. Zhuo Fan blushed. Elder Yuan shook his head. A love between a man and a woman is of course not possible. It's very dangerous. Why else do you think the demon-scheming sect forbids it? I see. Zhuo Fan felt disappointed and sighed. But then hope rekindled in his eyes. But someone said that how can you be emotionless if you never knew emotion? You must feel it before you can squash it. Who told you that? Dan Qing Shun. Ha ha ha, so it was him. Elder Yuan shook his head. He is the best in Western lands, but he is a righteous cultivator, unable to comprehend our demonic heart. Zhuo Fan's heart sank because Elder Yuan had clearly shot down this theory. It would seem that his final answer to Chu Qingcheng would be a negative one, but the old man laughed before he got too disappointed. The expert was right though. No wonder he is the best in Western lands. He's gone far. Zhuo Fan's face twitched. After being thrown in despair, he was brought back up. Elder Yuan, can you not toy with me? I'm serious here. Ha ha ha, but I'm not. It's you who toys with yourself. Since you already have your answer within you, why ask me? Elder Yuan teased. Steward Zhuo, do you want me to say that there's no harm to your demonic path by feeling love? Zhuo Fan tensed and bowed. Elder Yuan is wise. My heart is treacherous and I ask Elder Yuan to be the judge. An outside perspective sees much more. If this love will harm my path, then I will squash it. Elder Yuan's mocked Zhuo Fan hesitated but nodded. Elder Yuan sighed. If some youngster came at me with this question, I'd have answered on the spot, that love is taboo for demonic cultivators. Touching it will mean endless pain and torture from which one can't escape. The demonic path is cruel and emotionless and any feelings are its bane. But to you, Steward Zhuo, I offer you one piece of advice. Let yourself go and accept it. Why? Zhuo Fan was stunned. Elder Yuan shook his head. Because you're already caught in its grip. Instead of breaking it, take it all if you don't want to have a heart demon. Zhuo Fan's brow shook in shock. Do you know why we, demonic cultivators, warn never to feel love? Elder Yuan asked Zhuo Fan. Zhuo Fan shook his head. Lost. Ha ha ha, I don't know either. But after years of pondering, I think I have an inkling. It's not that demonic cultivators can't feel love, but it's better reserved for those advanced players to tackle. Hey! Zhuo Fan was stumped. Elder Yuan continued, at the birth of the world, the righteous and demonic paths came to be. As the human heart has desire, it leads to two different ways to cultivate. The righteous path abolishes desire, to be one with the world, unshackled by any greed. While the demonic path is the opposite, experiencing endless desire through which to break the mortal coil and reach the Tao. In other words, righteous means to be above everything, while demonic implies sinking into it. This shows that the paths are neither good nor evil, but once you enter them, it's easy for desires to be born and end up at their mercy. This is a demon. By overcoming it, you reach Tao. So the demonic path means passing through the demon state to reach Tao. What we want to do in the end is to attain Tao. Because it's easy to be constantly tempted along our cultivation journey, we end up being demonic and earn such a bad name. But all those that achieved success in the demonic path are not demons, and certainly won't be like those 4 scheming demons, pillaging and killing at a whim. Because they had gone beyond in their path and have come closer to Tao. Zhuo Fan nodded as he understood it. He used to think the demonic path implied selfishness, but now he saw it was just prejudice. By becoming a demon and rising above greed could one reach the Tao. Zhuo Fan finally saw the path wide open before him. As for love, it's nothing by itself, but it's the most tempting desire from which escape is nigh impossible. Many demonic cultivators have been unable to distinguish love from desire and sink further and further, moving away from the Tao. That is why demonic cultivators are so ruthless when it comes to love, not getting anywhere near it. This is because it's hard for anyone to come back from it. To righteous cultivators, this is easier. They walk the path of abandoning all desire, neutralizing the desire and keeping them safe. Elder Yuan continued, but you must understand, nothing ventured, nothing gained. The world is cruel but also fair. The demonic path is filled with more pain than the righteous path, so when all these trials are overcome, the demonic cultivator would attain a higher level than a righteous cultivator. Zhuo Fan nodded. In other words, love isn't scary, as long as I don't let it take me. Ha ha ha, that's besides the point right now, since you're already in it. Elder Yuan pointed at his heart. Do you know what a demonic cultivator's greatest heart demon is? Regret. Since you're already taken by love, if you don't settle it, it will turn into regret and will be much worse. As to how you are to escape the maelstrom of love, that will be up to you alone. That's why I said that it is for advanced players only. A child has no place toying with it. But I believe you're the exception. I hope that even if you are taken over by love, you will be able to see your path, and not be like Danqingshan, almost collapsing because of it, consumed by revenge. Though he's also amazing, getting back on his path in the end, ha ha ha. Taking a deep breath, Zhuofan nodded and bowed. Thank you for everything, Elder Yuan. I know what to do now. I can finally give her an answer. I feel so much better. Ha ha ha, I'm only speaking what your heart tells you. It might not be the truth. While there's a demonic and righteous path, the world has thousands of other trails. Who is to say that yours is the right one? That's why it's all up to you to do what you feel is right. Elder Yuan spoke heavily. Steward Zhuo, your heart already had an answer but was conflicted under the traditional beliefs. That's why you came to me. But the closer you are to Tao, the fewer people there are understanding it. There will come a time when no one can explain it to you. You will only have yourself to believe in. My past experiences might not be the right path. You will know it when you walk your own road. Star-led, Zhuofan bowed again and said, I will take it to heart. Zhuofan left afterward. His next goal was Mystical Heaven's sect. Seeing his light steps, Elder Yuan nodded and sighed. The child has his own road, but why do you keep losing yours, Wu Yue? Chapter 730, Help. Chapter 730, Help. Proofreader, Papatonks. Master, is it really impossible? Damn miscreant, have you already forgotten that pain? Didn't that girl hurt you enough? No matter how much merit you've done for the sect, rules are rules. Sect leader won't budge in this matter, so just give it a rest. And don't even think about going to him with this, or you'll only make it worse. That time, even I can't save you. Zhuofan's heart was free, unshackled and light. He felt so carefree as he walked, eager to get to the Mystical Heaven sect. But then his ear picked up two familiar voices that caught his attention, Venerable Qi and Kuei Lang. Even puzzled, Zhuofan would hardly ever butt in someone's problems, but today he was in such a good mood, he walked right over. What's wrong? Why are master and disciple arguing? Oh, Steward Zhuo. Kuei Lang immediately bowed and Venerable Qi nodded in respect. This brat only knows how to cause trouble. He got a bit of merit and it got to his head. He even forgot the last transgression that got him kicked into the labor office. Kuei Lang looked ashamed and lowered his head. Zhuofan raised an eyebrow. Just what happened? Can I hear it? Kuei Lang hesitated before giving Zhuofan a glance. Steward Zhuo, you know already. It's my girl. Oh, because of you she's been detained in the Mystical Heaven sect. That's why Xian Xiaoyu threatened you in the Double Dragon gathering. Zhuofan exclaimed. Venerable Qi's eyelid twitched and he glared at Kuei Lang. You actually gave up for an enemy in the Double Dragon gathering? This is absurd. If the sect leader finds out, you'd be lucky to keep your life. Sigh, damn vixens. Venerable Qi stomped in anger. Zhuofan waved his hand with a smile. Venerable Qi, there's no need for anger. Only the three of us know this. Besides, I'm also about to leave anyway. Thank you so much, Steward Zhuo. Venerable Qi gave a deep bow then glared at Kuei Lang, making him feel even more guilty. However, he still clung to one last thread of hope. Didn't we earn a great merit? Sect leader is cheerful as well. I think using this chance to ask him to use the demon scheming sect's glorious name to ask the Mystical Heaven sect to get my girl back. Bullshit. Venerable Qi snapped. The demon scheming sect is against fraternizing. And you even expect he'd lower himself to the Mystical Heaven sect for a mere disciple like you? We'd be lucky if the Mystical Heaven sect wouldn't take advantage of our weakness and just let her go. But even so, our sect would have lost its name because of it. Venerable Qi's torrent of words smashed into Kuei Lang's ears, causing him to lose hope. And yet, he still looked at Zhuofan with a fixed gaze. His master couldn't help him, so now it was up to Zhuofan if he was willing to pass it on to the sect leader. Even if a mere disciple, Zhuo Fan was the sect leader's confidant. Having gotten such a glorious win at the Double Dragon Gathering, putting the sect in the top middle 3 sects, the sect leader might hear him out when not even elders or venerables could get his ear. Zhuo Fan frowned, rubbing his chin. Your master's right. Let it go, or you'll only make it worse. Xie Wuyue doesn't care about anyone. He won't help you at all. In fact, he would fly into a rage and punish you. You're better off not mentioning it. Venerable Qi nodded like it was obvious, glaring at his disciple. See that, even Steward Zhuo said it. Kuei Lang's face fell in despair. Although, Zhuo Fan switched topics with a crafty smile, getting someone out isn't necessarily done using the sect's name. I'm just about to go to Mystical Heaven sect and fetch someone. You can just come along. The two gave him dumb looks. Then Venerable Qi gasped, Steward Zhuo. Ha ha ha, if I won't do it, who else will? Zhuo Fan smiled as he looked above. I've been absorbed with the demonic path for years and have discovered many truths. That should make me a somewhat advanced player. No matter how deep you sink into the sea of desire, I shall not fear. Ha ha ha. The two looked lost at him. Zhuo Fan turned to Kuei Lang and said, What are you staring at? Come on, Mystical Heaven sect had been a lower 3 sect for all these years and shouldn't have many sacred stones. I'll use the 2,000 on me to smash their face in and get those girls. One for you and one for me. Zhuo Fan started walking towards the gate. Kuei Lang came out of it at some point and rushed after him. Steward Zhuo, why are you really going to give your sacred stones for my girl? Of course. Sacred stones are just invaluable things compared to people. Steward Zhuo, you're truly kind. I'll never forget this for as long as I live. No matter what happens, I will do anything you ask. Lighten up. We're just two guys bearing the same trouble. Though, there may be a use of you yet. Who knows, ha ha ha. Zhuo Fan and Kuei Lang chuckled in the distance, leaving Venerable Qi dumbstruck. 2,000 sacred stones over 2 girls? This is such a waste. Their sect had at most 1,000 of those glittering baubles that had to last the sect for centuries. Yet now, this Steward Zhuo was going to squander twice that on some broads. Venerable Qi looked ahead as his face twitched and heart bled. No matter how loaded you are, you can't just throw it all away. Sigh, how can a nouveau riche understand the pain of poverty? Venerable Qi shook his head, unable to make sense of Zhuo Fan's actions, but also envious and admired him. Zhuo Fan was spending so much for his girl and was going to do the same for Kuei Lang. Such a nice boss was a rarity in this world. It's Kuei Lang's fortune to land such a boss. While theirs, Xie Wuyue, was stingy to the core, fighting for every scrap. He had no idea, though, that those 2,000 rocks were a drop in a bucket for Zhuo Fan, while a life fortune to Xie Wuyue. Putting them side by side, one could see how one spent. Zhuo Fan, can we go now? At the demon scheming sect's entrance, Shuang'er and Yongning were waiting for him. Yongning asked, Brother Kuei Lang, you're coming along? Kuei Lang had a bright smile, but it was Zhuo Fan who said, No, he will only accompany us to Mystical Heaven sect. Mystical Heaven sect? We're going to get Qing Cheng and then go home together. Zhuo Fan had a wide smile on his face. The girl's heart skipped a beat, but then smiled. Shuang'er found Zhuo Fan's look even more enchanting. No wonder I found your attitude off. You're no longer as depressed as before. So you have your answer for Sister Qing Cheng. I've dragged out this question for far too long. Zhuo Fan sighed. The girls nodded, finally able to rest their intentions and be happy for him. The 4 were now on the road to Mystical Heaven sect. Since Zhuo Fan said he'd answer Chu Qing Cheng half a year later, they were in no rush. In fact, Zhuo Fan was actually dragging his feet, as if nervous. This question had been on hold for almost a decade. How would he answer? How would she react? How would I react? These were all pressing questions to Zhuo Fan. Suddenly, Zhuo Fan felt as if he was like a tense bride before her wedding. The girls giggled. The high and mighty Steward Zhuo balks when it comes to talking about relationships. The team had gone like this for a month, yet they were only a third of the way to Mystical Heaven sect. Even Shuang'er was starting to dislike this and pouted, We're not here to sightsee. If we go any slower, you'll miss your due date with Sister Qing Cheng. Really? Zhuo Fan let out a dry laugh. But how am I to answer her? All these years I've been so cold. Whoosh. A red figure came smashing down 100 meters from them. Kicking up a cloud of dust, the group was stunned to see mystical heaven sect's Dana, Chu Qingcheng's junior sister. As he was going to Chu Qingcheng, Zhuofan had to mind her junior sister, no? So he rushed over to help her up. Dana, what's wrong? What happened? Said Zhuofan. Dana looked in joy, then said, why you have to save sister Qingcheng? Chapter 731, Qingcheng's Danger. Chapter 731, Qingcheng's Danger. Proofreader. Papatonks. What happened to Qingcheng? Zhuofan hurriedly shook Dana's frail body, panting. Dana teared up, and sister Ruohua, Qing'er, they. Zhuofan hardened, I don't care about them. Tell me now, what happened to Qingcheng? Zhuofan was sweating as he stared down Dana until she was scared. Steward Zhuo, let her speak. You're scaring the poor child. Kuei Lang spoke and said to Dana, little girl, tell us what happened. We'll definitely help. Dana looked at them and finally said, sect leader wanted us 5 sisters to cure the young master's illness. What? Zhuofan's face fell and gnashed his teeth. I knew the punk was born a cripple with lacking elements, but now I see even his brain is screwed on wrong. He dares to touch my girl. Sensing the seething hatred seeping from Zhuofan, Dana was in shock from fear. Yet for some reason, his towering bloodthirst gave her a sense of safety. Kuei Lang patted Zhuofan's shoulder to cool him down. Just what happened exactly? Please tell us everything so we can save them. Well, Double Dragon Gathering nodded and began. After the Double Dragon Gathering, we got back to the sect. The day barely ended and some elders came to us in the dead of night to seal some of my sister's cultivation, then put them in a room with the sect leader and the young master. That was when we knew that the 4-element cycle array was all to heal the young master's illness for lacking elements. The only reason we went to Double Dragon Gathering was to test the limits of the 4-element cycle array, whether it fit the bill. Only in a life and death battle would the power of this array be brought out. The elder found it eligible, so they took our sisters to cure the young master. Schwanger hurriedly asked, cure how? The 4-element cycle array relies on maidens with elemental constitutions to draw out their power and purify the young master's body to rebuild his elemental balance. Finally, Dana blushed as she spoke in a lower tone, using a maiden's blood to draw out the 5 elements and completely cure the young master. Bam! Zhuofan's hand pulverized a rock nearby. In other words, the perverted young master wants Qingcheng's body. Not just that. Wiping her tears, Dana sobbed, it would be fine if it were just curing young master, since we were dedicated to this and we've also seen young master grow up. Bearing some sacrifices to save him was acceptable to us, but I never thought. What? They all asked. Dana's sobbing grew louder. Young master actually sucked out all of sister Qing'er's spirit and soul. He was so scary. Qing'er became a dried husk and even sect leader looked shocked. This is a demonic art of stealing yin to further yang. The punk has turned demonic. Zhuofan's brow shook, his teeth clenched. I fear that ever since that little town has been like this, ever since Yang Mo drew him to the demonic path. But Yang Mo is a demonic cultivator and is used in this matter. Unlike Xian Xiaoyu, who has no restraint, being so new to it all. So that's why. It's all Yang Mo's fault. Shut it. Seeing Dana sobbing, Zhuofan glared at her. The righteous path means to be above everything, to be an ascetic. One shouldn't fall prey to the demonic nature so easily. Yet desire has taken hold of his heart and it was just a matter of time before he fell. Yang Mo was only a trigger. It was his twisted heart who was tested in the end, and it was found lacking. Now whose fault was it? Dana's heart shook and closed her eyes in silence. Zhuofan frowned and sighed. How are the girls? And how did you get out? Sister Qingcheng seemed to have seen this coming and was prepared. She held a poison pill in her mouth. The moment they force her, she would take it. She said she had an agreement with you 6 months later. If you weren't there after this time, she would do what the sect leader asked. If you arrived and gave her an answer, she would be able to rest in peace. And she's also protecting the others. Dana sobbed. Then we had our cultivation sealed, but we could still move. Sister Qingcheng seemed prepared since one day she took us to the permafrost cave. There was senior sister Han chennying in a wall there and she broke through it to unseal our cultivation. We killed our way out afterward, but the elders blocked us. Only I managed to escape while the others got caught. What, Qianying? Kuei Lang cried out. Dana looked at him and nodded. Sect leader Qianying was the previous wielder of permafrost. She should have been one of the girls in the four-element cycle array, but after hearing of her sect rule violation 2 decades ago, for colluding with demonic cultivators, she was cast out. Why else would the sect throw away such a rare water constitution like hers? In the end, the sect leader had looked high and low for a replacement, thus coming with Sister Qingcheng. Qianying, Kuei Lang's eyebrow shook. How is she? Dana shook her head. I don't know. After I got away, they were caught. But I believe Sister Qianying knew what was going on, so that must be why Sister Qingcheng was prepared. After all, Sister Qingcheng had been in contact with Sister Qianying ever since she came to the sect and inherited permafrost. Closing his eyes, Kuei Lang shook all over, gnashing his teeth and showing his deep worry. Pa. Zhuo Fan slammed his heavy hand on his shoulder. Kuei Lang started and looked at Zhuo Fan's dark and scary face. Is Han Qianying your girl? Zhuo Fan squinted. Don't worry, Qingcheng is smart. Since she can save one person, she can save many. In any case, without your girl, I would now probably be late to the rescue. I alone have no chance of getting 2 girls out. But now, since there's still time before the appointment, it's enough to send a team in and take down Mystical Heaven Sec. Kuei Lang shuddered and looked at Zhuo Fan in amazement. Dana was also shaken up. Mystical Heaven Sect was one of the 9 sects in Western lands. While conflicts between them existed, an all-out war was out of the question, not when it would draw Double Dragon Mana's attention. No one was about to take such a blame, yet Zhuo Fan, in a fit of anger, didn't care about these things. Even if the consequences would be dire, that would be then. If he did not do this, he would regret it for as long as he lived. Zhuo Fan was seeping with bloodthirst, shocking everyone around him. Dana was even more dazzled by his aura. This guy's insane, but also a mover and a shaker. Whoosh! 2 elderly in white flashed before the group. In the 4th layer of ethereal stage it's Elder Li and Elder Chang. Dana cried out in fear. The elders showed mocking smiles. Seeing Kuei Lang was the strongest at 2nd layer of ethereal stage, they thought they were easy pickings. Dana, you dumb girl, did you really think you could escape Mystical Heaven Sect? Bam! One elder looked at her with contempt, yet he did not finish as the sky was filled with blood. Gone was his presence, as was his irritating voice. In his place was a huge scarlet dragon, Zhuo Fan's almighty Scarlet Dragon King. Its sharp claw clenched the tenderized flesh, spreading the bloody smell as it squirted. What blood it had left on that dragon was Zhuo Fan and his cold, dead eyes. In a singular strike he wiped a 4th layer ethereal stage expert off the face of this world, destroyed in body and soul. The other elder was close to having a mental breakdown. Dana was standing there in shock at Zhuo Fan's action. She knew Zhuo Fan was strong, but she didn't think he would let anger take him to the point he would not let the others even speak. It only showed how much Chu Qingcheng's plight grated on his nerves. Heaven Dragon Soul. Almighty Scarlet Dragon King? The elder looked on in shock, shaking all over. Why Yuri, the one young master talked about. The freak at the Double Dragon Gathering, demon scheming sects. Zhuo Fan. Smirking, Zhuo Fan mocked, right in one guess, though I have no prize for you. Bam! With another loud noise, the almighty Scarlet Dragon King's other claw slammed down, crushing him before he even got a chance to wail. His guts and everything sprayed all over the place. Chapter 732, Charisma. Chapter 732, Charisma. Proofreader, Papatonks. Whoosh tilde. With the 2 pursuing Mystical Heaven Sect elders dealt with, Zhuo Fan took back his soul and used a sacred stone to set up an instant concealing array around the group. Tilde. In a blink, all of them vanished from sight. You guys wait here and don't move. I'm going back to the sect for help. Zhuo Fan gave them a quick look then left. Kuei Lang suddenly said, Steward Zhuo, sect leader will never agree to go to war with Mystical Heaven Sec. It's of no consequence. I will bring our people. Squinting, his eyes flashed. Zhuo Fan's heart had a plan in motion as he flew for the demon scheming sect. Kuei Lang, I'll leave the girls in your care. Don't worry, Steward Zhuo, I will do my duty. Kuei Lang cupped his hands, sighing inside. Steward Zhuo, please find a way to get Miss Chu and my girl. It's all up to you now. Whoosh tilde. Half a month later, Zhuofan was back in Demon Scheming Sect. With a sign, the space warped to show an entrance halt. Who goes there? One disciple popped before Zhuofan, but upon recognition, he jerked back and apologized. Steward Zhuo is back. Forgive my rudeness. It's fine. Zhuofan waved him off. The disciple scratched his head. Thank you, Steward Zhuo. That brat kept saying Steward Zhuo has left the sect and won't be coming back. It made me so sad these past 2 weeks. Aren't you back now? Ha ha ha. You really missed me? Zhuofan raised an eyebrow. The disciple instantly nodded. Of course, it's all thanks to Steward Zhuo that we, laborious, no longer live as cattle. You brought us hope for tomorrow. Although now it's different and I don't have the strength to enter Steward Zhuo's elite labor office, at the very least I have a future now. I will definitely join next year. Ha ha ha. Good for you. Zhuofan patted his shoulder with a smile. How many others share your thoughts? Startled, the disciple was still honest. Steward Zhuo, all of the labor office is immensely grateful for all that you've done for us. All those inner and outer disciples that entered elite labor have gained a lot from it. I believe that most disciples and elders hold Steward Zhuo in favor for doing so much for the sect. There's still some left. They're likely inner sect elders trustees. They must be hating your guts. Ha ha ha. The two burst out laughing. Zhuofan nodded and turned serious. Then, how many of you are willing to help me with something? Steward Zhuo, you need but say it and we'll brave any dangers. The guy cupped his hands. Good. Is sect leader around? Zhuofan nodded and plotted as he walked for the inner sect. Ha ha ha. Steward Zhuo, this is because of your feats. The guy sighed. Sect leader has been very busy lately and has no time to stay at the sect. Ever since you shone at the Double Dragon gathering, many empires want to throw their lot with us. They even want us to move in with them, something only the superior 3 sects can do. Sect leader has been so happy these days, always moving from one empire to another for talks. Zhuofan shook and turned his head back with a devious smile. So sect leader isn't home? That is the case. The disciple gave a numb nod, grinning wider. Zhuofan laughed. Perfect, this makes it easier. Zhuofan strutted forward for the inner gate, leaving the disciple scratching his head. Steward Zhuo is acting strange. Dang tilde. A bell toll was heard throughout the sect. All elders and venerables jerked at the sound, rushing for the main hall. For God's sake, who the hell is the fool to mess with the bell and call for a meeting? The Double Dragon gathering is over and it's only been 2 days since last time. What's so important this time? One elder grumbled as he dragged himself over to the hall. A venerable came to him and mocked. Are you stupid? The sect leader isn't around. Only the high venerable has the right to toll. But he has always been a simple man and never used the bell. Though there is one with the nerve to do it, Venerable Sir? The elder's mouth twitched. Their inner faction had been losing all the time. We, from the elite labor, are twice as many as them. Yet he still has the never to make a fuss. Is he after a power play now that sect leader isn't here? The venerable shrugged. Who knows? Ha ha ha, one thing's for sure, he doesn't have the strength. All oldies were going towards the main hall filled with doubt. Venerable Sha frowned in his home. Next to him was his prized disciple, Lucia, did you make contact with him? Venerable Sha muttered. Lucia spoke in earnest. Master, they have all agreed and await something to happen here. What can happen when they all run off? Venerable Sha mocked. It looks like there are still people out there unconcerned by fame and fortune, shirking off their merits. Zhuofan, that's mighty noble of you, leaving after your big win. Do you not care about your career? Or is it that you sensed the danger around you and made the logical choice? Venerable Sha's eyes shone as he sighed. He had been waiting for the moment to act for so long it made him depressed. Lucia was also helpless. Zhuofan has always been unexpected and unpredictable. Dang tilde. The clear sound of a bell echoed out in the courtyard. Venerable Sha raised an eyebrow and looked at the inner sect with a frown. That twerp Siawua isn't home, so who'd dare toll the main hall's bell instead of me? Venerable Sha's eyes shone. Maybe this is the chance we've all been waiting for. The two rushed over. In the main hall there was now a sea of people. All elders and venerables had gathered, all looking stumped at the man in center. he told the bell. Elders and venerables of demon scheming sect, have all of you come? Zhuo Fan looked at them with a cold eye. They all started, with venerable by looking at Zhuo Fan curiously. Steward Zhuo, what is this? Only the sect leader and high venerable can toll the inner sect bell. Though they had been some using it without permission in the past, you're still a disciple. If you need us to do something, you could have just asked and not made a scene. Hihi, Venerable Bai, who are you talking about here? One elder of Venerable Shi's faction barked. High Venerable hardly interferes in sect matters and goes where he wants. For Venerable Shi to come forward is only natural. What's wrong in him tolling the bell? Isn't it above his status still? What's hard to understand? He schemes for power. Venerable Bai mocked. The other elder was enraged. Zhuo Fan held out a bright badge, with Xie written on it. Is this authority enough? Sect leader's badge. The oldies shook and bowed. Greetings, sect leader. Zhuo Fan was akin to Xie Wuiwa holding that badge since Xie Wuiwa wasn't home. It left Zhuo Fan room to weasel in. Elders and venerables of the demon scheming sect must obey sect leader's orders. They all bowed and none dared refute him. Zhuo Fan shouted, Demon scheming sect's elders and venerables will now listen to my commands, or they will be punished by sect rules. Yes, sir. The crowd bowed again. The entire sect is to come with me to mystical heaven sec. What? They all looked at him in shock. He wanted everyone to go to mystical heaven sect. What for? That would leave their sect empty and would cause God knew what by going into another sect's turf. Everyone was hesitating. Is this sect leader's true intention? Even Venerable Qi and Bai, people on Zhuo Fan's side, were looking lost. Only one person looked joyfully at Zhuo Fan on the highest chair, Venerable Shi. Hey, Zhuo Fan, you're back at last. The bigger the noise you make, the better. Allow this old man to lend you a hand as well. Venerable Shi grinned like a winner. Chapter 733, All the King's Men. Chapter 733, All the King's Men. Proofreader, Papatonks. What's going on here? Who tolled the bell? Acting like he just showed up, Venerable Shi looked tense as he walked in front. Seeing his elders were also here, one came before him and pointed at Zhuo Fan. Venerable Shi, Zhuo Fan holds the sect leader badge and rang the bell, convening this meeting. Now he wants everyone in the sect to march for mystical heaven sect. What? Venerable Shi looked deeply at Zhuo Fan, then at the badge. Zhuo Fan gave him a cold look. He knew that Venerable Shi was the boss of the inner sect. Even though Xie Wuiwa was the sect leader, he was still being contradicted in cases. Which made it even harder just by having his badge in this case. If he was blocked, he would just have to set Venerable Shi as an example for the rest of them. Zhuo Fan's eyes flashed with bloodthirst while the oldies looked at his defiant gaze with mockery. You're just a mere disciple with a bit of merit to your name. Even if you're sect leader's right hand, not even sect leader himself would be able to do what he wanted if Venerable Shi was against it. Wanting to use some piece of wood to cower us? You don't know the power of the inner sect by the looks of it. Venerable Qi and the others from the labor office watched while calculating gains and losses. If Zhuo Fan was going against Venerable Shi, they would side with him. Although Zhuo Fan's order was casual, it had deep implications and should be treated with care. But he had sect leader's badge and was also labor office's representative. Be it in a vie for power in an empire or the clashes between sects, it always came down to following the one that adhered to their goals. Zhuo Fan was the rock of the labor office. So no matter how ridiculous his request was, they would back him up. This was a fight for interests. The hall was split in two groups on the spot, glaring at each other as they were on the brink of war, plunging the sect into a bitter fight. However, Venerable Shi's action left everyone shocked. Both factions stared at him in stupefaction, bowing before Zhuo. The badge. Venerable Shi spoke with utmost respect. Greetings, sect leader, I obey your order. Venerable Shi. His faction looked at him lost, the same for labor office's side. What's with Venerable Shi all of a sudden? Why did he cave so soon when he always fought tooth and nail with sect leader? Is Zhuo Fan's aura so grand that it shook him? Everyone's mind was thrown for a loop at the sudden development. Glaring at them, Venerable Shi spoke earnestly. Impudent. Zhuo Fan carries sect leader's badge, which makes him the highest power beneath sect leader. His words are sect leader's. How dare you defy his orders? We won't. They all hung their head. Fan and Venerable Cheeseside were filled with doubt. Did he wake up on the wrong side of the bed this morning? Ignoring their puzzled gazes, Venerable Sha smiled. Ha ha ha, since this is sect leader's will, we can only follow it. Only, we can't leave the sect empty. May I leave a few inner sect elders and disciple to defend it, Steward Zhuo? Eyeing him, Fan nodded. He didn't want to take them in the first place. Only labor office's elders, or if they came as well, it might spell trouble at the worst moment. Though Venerable Sha's attitude was very peculiar. Queer in fact, why is he helping me for a change? Frowning, Fan looked dead in the weasel's eyes, pondering and finally letting it go. Time was no longer a luxury right now. All right. We'll do as Venerable Sha said. The inner sect elders and venerables shall stay behind while labor offices will follow me. Fan nodded and boomed. Everyone nodded and bowed in response. Venerable Cheese Team had their doubts, but now, to support Fan, they kept silent. Since even Venerable Sha, who was always against us, didn't make a fuss, why should we? So, Fan led the oldies group as they walked out of the main hall with great fanfare. Soon, the entire sect was in a clamor as the disciples gathered to set off. Watching the lively scene, Venerable Sha had a nasty smile. An elder next to him frowned. Venerable Sha, why would you allow such a serious action? It's because it's so serious that we must let the kid do it. I can't let him run off again without stirring things. Ha ha ha. Venerable Sha stroked his beard, his eyes glinting. Getting rid of him alone isn't enough. We must remove the elite labor office down to the root as well. Or they would just rise again and we'll regret it. Now that he's asking for it, we should further his manic plans and let him destroy himself. The others frowned, with only Grand Elder able to see the wisdom in it and shaking his head. The kid has done it this time. Demon Scheming Sect's disciples had their orders and soon gathered. Kuei Gang and Yua were obviously there. Since they were the closest to Fan, soon there were tens of thousands of disciples at the ready. Fan looked around before setting off with all of them. The entire Demon Scheming Sect was now empty and eerily silent, with only 100 elders holding down the fort. 2 weeks later, Kuei Gang and the girls were tense, waiting for news from Fan. Seeing how another month passed, the four were tense about Chu Qingcheng and the others' fate, as well as if Fan would be able to bring any help. Rumble tilde. The sky darkened and thunder rolled. The black clouds loomed overhead, reflecting the downcast mood they felt inside. It was so oppressive it was hard to breathe. Looking above, those were not clouds but a sea of people that came right for them. The one leading them was none other than Fan. Kuei Lang cried out, "Heavens above, Steward Zhuo got the entire sect to come? Why are there so many people here to get our girls? How high could Fan even be in the Demon Scheming Sect? Your sect leader is willing to fight Mystical Heaven Sect all because he asked." Demon Scheming Sect looked stunned. The other two girls were excited. Across all Western lands, only one man had such a charisma to get so many people to move. Fan. Not that others lacked the power, but none were crazy enough to go to such lengths as attacking a sect for a girl. None but Fan. Whoosh. Fan led the descent. Kuei Lang's group rushed over with gratitude. "Steward Zhuo, your name is so widespread and heavy that sect leader gave you such force. I am in awe of being able to follow someone like you." Fan, however, made a gesture for him to keep silent. "Keep it down. This isn't Xie Wuyue's doing. Luckily he was away and I could bring so many." Hey! Kuei Lang's scalp was numb also. "These guys don't know why I've brought them yet. So don't say anything and leave the explaining to me." Fan grinned at the four, yet they were all shell-shocked. Kuei Lang was even shaking all over. "Steward Zhuo, you didn't tell them anything and still brought them? When they find out we're going to save our girls, won't they turn on us?" Kuei Lang felt like crying. "I can even see my master over there." His master was against being with Han Qianying, and he was wondering just how pissed off he'd be once he found out he was here just to save her. Fan patted his shoulder. "Do you want to save her?" "I do." "How much?" "With every fiber of my being." Kuei Lang spoke heavily. Fan nodded and smiled. "Then leave it all to me." With a wise look in his eyes, Fan turned to the elders and released his mighty aura. Seeing him so high and mighty, Kuei Lang finally realized that he was unlike any of them. They were still hesitating even if they wanted to do this, while Fan was a man of action and determination. That was why he, as a mere disciple, led most of the demon scheming sect's elders and venerables. Chapter 734, Join Forces. Chapter 734, Join Forces. Proofreader, Papatonks. Cough tilde. Clearing his throat, Zhuofan looked at the elders and venerables, his face hard and dead serious. People, we'll stop here for now. I have to make you understand why we're going to Mystical Heaven sect. Everyone get ready and prepare for action. They all frowned at how he spoke. They already found the fact he got all the experts from the sect strange, but Zhuofan's hard look seemed to show this matter had far more implications than he let on. They all looked at him, tension clear in their expressions. We're going to Mystical Heaven sect too. Zhuofan squinted and shouted, "Attack! To teach them a lesson." What? They cried out instantly at such a preposterous idea. Venerable by even refuted, Steward Zhuo, that's going over the line. The 9 sect scuffles are minor, but to attack a sect like this without justification is criminal. The Double Dragon Manor will definitely intervene at some point and will punish us. None of us can take such blame. Not even sect leader. Zhuofan scratched his nose. Justification? Did grabbing girls sounded better? Who the hell would risk their lives then? Steward Zhuo, is this really sect leader's intent? Venerable Qi looked at Kuei Lang and figured something out. If sect leader has no real reason, it's best we go back. It's not too late. If we go now, none of us can take on such a heavy responsibility for what may come. Venerable Qi looked long at Zhuofan as he advised. He was reminding Steward Zhuo, a mere girl ain't worth going crazy over. We can still turn back. Let's pretend that nothing happened before we lose more than we can afford. Venerable Qi didn't expose Zhuofan's intent, as a huge gesture of respect, but would Zhuofan balk so easily? Zhuofan huffed and glared at them all. Do you know why I never stated the reason back in the sect? It's because I feared Venerable Shi's lies would block the attack on Mystical Heaven sect. Why? Because if they lost this battle, they would lose everything. We, however, aren't afraid, because we came from nothing and everything will be earned after. It's never in the now. They all shook and looked on with serious faces. The Laborus were even echoing him. Many things had happened in the Double Dragon gathering, but I did not let the 3 venerables speak of them, out of fear that you would be impulsive. With a drawn-out sigh, Zhuofan continued with a crestfallen tone, actually, our achievements could have been higher. But because of Mystical Heaven sect schemes, we suffered in singles, losing our chance to be a superior 3 sect. That really happened. The oldies whispered among each other in anger. Zhuofan-eyed Fiend Yang, shouting, "Venerable Fiend Yang, isn't that so?" "Why yes," startled, Fiend Yang bobbed his head. Though Zhuofan had deliberated with the team on this matter before, to report only the good news for a greater achievement, yet Zhuofan had now used it as an excuse to get Chu Ching Cheng. He was going to do anything to instill hatred into these people and save his girl. Fiend Yang had no clue about this, so he just agreed with a dark look. Zhuofan gnashed his teeth. Sect leader was enraged when he heard the dire consequences. Mystical Heaven sect is a lower 3 sect like we used to be. Now that we're about to be a real middle 3 sect, are we about to stand their humiliation? That's why sect leader sent me a month earlier to return the favor, to show off our sect's power. Having seen Steward Zhuo's light, they now knew he didn't leave for the secular world as it was said, but because of sect leader's order. But just as I got to Mystical Heaven sect, something grave happened. Zhuofan's tone shifted. They want to combine with Heaven Trailing sect. This will raise them above the middle 3 sect's power just so they would suppress us from the shadows. Hearing this news, I rushed to report to sect leader. In this time, there were even 2 elders who came to silence me, but of course I killed them instead. What? The oldies exploded in rage. Mystical Heaven sect was too damn presumptuous, leaving Double Dragon gathering schemes behind. Sending elders to kill our greatest contributor must be punished. Do they think demon scheming sect can be messed with? Seeing their anger, Zhuofan grinned on the inside. Sect leader was also furious hearing of this and wanted to deal with them personally. But you all know sect leader is holding talks with all kinds of empires. If we get pushed back because of 2 sects, it will affect our name. That's why sect leader had me make the first move. Since we can't win Heaven Trailing sect, That doesn't mean we can't touch its little bro. So sect leader gave me his badge, leaving me in charge. Even if Double Dragon Manor would punish us, we have to fight for our name. We are a middle 3 sect now, not something a lower 3 sect can mess with. This fight will establish us among the middle 3 sects. As long as Mystical Heaven sect isn't destroyed, what's so grave about some punishment? I would even return the 2,000 sacred stones if I had to, just to preserve our name in the Western land. Steward Zhuo is truly honorable. If you do it, how can't we? Let's mess 'em up. The crowd cheered with a roar, ready to go kill their way into Mystical Heaven sect. Kuei Lang had a dumb look on his face. Steward Zhuo's wild boasting had the sect's elders thirsting for battle. Now even if sect leader shows up, they won't stop either. Just how did these shrewd old guys end up taken in by Zhuo Fan's words so easily? That was because Zhuo Fan had preyed on their minds to get someone to give their life for you. Benefits were a must, pillaging Mystical Heaven sect. On the other hand, there was also a need for a reason. Sect leader's order was the perfect excuse. While also making him the scapegoat. Zhuo Fan even said he would return his sacred stones if he had to. It showed he'd take the blame as well. And finally, focusing their anger on a common enemy, getting everyone roaring to go, everything went as Zhuo Fan wanted it to. He got every oldie on board, even if they had some doubts because Zhuo Fan had smoothened over their worries already. Now all they had to do was follow Zhuo Fan into battle and get those girls back who Tilda. Zhuo Fan eased a breath and sported a strange grin. Dana was stumped. This big talker actually got this motley crew to save someone. Even I would have believed him if I didn't know something about this. Ha ha ha. Venerable Qi shook his head. Fiend Yang's brow shook. Wasn't that badge used to be the leader in the Double Dragon gathering? How did it become Wu Yue's proof to attack Mystical Heaven sect? Fiend Yang was perplexed. The disciples who went to Double Dragon gathering were also aware of the gaps in that glorious speech. But they were on Zhuo Fan's side. The previously puzzled demon scheming sect's crowd was now united under a single thought: to kill. All that was left was to get to Mystical Heaven sect. Seeing as he could not stop Zhuo Fan, Venerable Qi proposed a valid point. Steward Zhuo, Mystical Heaven sect is mostly the same size as us, but we are now going without everyone and are about to attack their home ground. It'll be hard to beat them behind their array. The people stopped being noisy and frowned. True. Zhuo Fan's brow shook and grinned. He turned around to look at a black cloud coming over, led by a familiar figure. Brother Zhuo, we've come to help. Who? The demon scheming sect's people looked up to see the sky covered by a throng of men as they flew over. In the lead was a man in his 20s, filled with vigor and regal. Zhuo Fan's features softened as he smiled. You've grown, Yun Hai. Brothers have come to answer the call. Zhuo Fan's eyes flashed and laughed. Ha ha ha, now we have enough men. My 2 armies will join forces and win. Chapter 735, Young Sanzi came to help. Chapter 735, Young Sanzi came to help. Proofreader, Papatonks. Whoosh tilde. Just like pitch-black rain, they all landed like a downpour behind Luo Yunhai. He came before Zhuo Fan in excitement. Brother Zhuo, it's been ages. How have you been? All right. Zhuo Fan grinned and patted his shoulder. I'm relieved you've now grown into your role as clan head. You must be skilled now in leading the Luo clan. Luo Yunhai shook his head. It's all because Brother Zhuo set the stage. With the 3 stewards minding everything, even as a clan head, I didn't have much worry. Ha ha ha, a clan head's greatest ability is to manage his people. If you'd micromanage everything in the clan, then you wouldn't be a clan head. A smile was splayed on Zhuo Fan's face. Those 3 are called the wisest 3 in Tianyu. It's clearly not for nothing. With them by your side, I had no worries. Luo Yunhai was worried though. But Big Brother Zhuo, I always hoped you'd come back. I've always kept the Grand Steward spot empty for you. Even Steward Zhuge won't touch it. As for the other 2, you got their positions set. When will you be coming back? I'll be a steward again when I return. Zhuo Fan grinned at him. I'm currently soaring through the ranks, yet to come back down. Startled, Luo Yunhai blinked at Zhuo Fan. Hey, there's another empty seat as well, my cis-husband. You could always. Forget it. It's better to be a steward. Zhuo Fan shook his head. I already have a wife. I sent a jade slip over to call for help just to save her, then go back to the Luo clan. Truly. Luo Yunhai was overjoyed. Just then, a rough voice sounded from behind. Steward Zhuo, you're coming back at last? We've waited ages for this. Zhuo Fan looked up to see a very familiar face, his number one aide, Li Jingtian. He was already in the 6th layer of ethereal stage, bursting with power and might. His grand aura even forced the weaker cultivators back. Next to him was Qiu Yanghai, Xue Qingjian, the 2 sages and tens of others in the ethereal stage. While foreign to him, they all held Zhuo Fan in high regard. Elder Li, everyone, long time no see. I'm indebted to you for this. Zhuo Fan cupped his hand before them, returning the gesture. They said, Steward Zhuo, it's our duty. Thank you all. Let's rush to mystical heaven sect. Zhuo Fan cupped his hands again and shouted. The Luo clan bowed and took to the skies, till the end. The demon scheming sect's crowd was in shock at such display. These guys only had around 40 ethereal stage experts, yet Zhuo Fan only told them to fight and they obeyed, no questions asked. Not caring about their safety, the demon scheming sect had many reservations in this battle, yet they looked at Zhuo Fan's serious face with a lost look, then sighed. They are Steward Zhuo's clansmen, of course they trust him. They didn't even ask for a reason to fight, only for Zhuo Fan to tell them to. It went to show just how highly he was seen among them. No wonder Steward Zhuo abandoned demon scheming sect's prospects to return home. This clan was worth it. Fiend Yang and Venerable Qi sighed. Dad. A childish voice came from the skies once more. The people looked up to see a red glow flash before them, taking the shape of a 7-year-old. Only this kid could fly, and from the faint aura he gave, he was definitely in the ethereal stage. All of demon scheming sect was shocked. How did this kid train? This is ludicrous. Only Zhuo Fan and Luo clan knew that he was Qianyu's number 1 freak, invincible scamp Jiyu Santong. No matter how freaky and tough Zhuo Fan was, he fell in 2nd place. Not that it mattered when they were practically related. Dad. Jiyu Santong landed right in Zhuo Fan's arms, cheering. Zhuo Fan smiled. Kid, you came at last. I thought the old guy wouldn't let you. As if. Even if Uncle said no, I'd just sneak out to help my old man. Hehe. Jiyu Santong was so glad he was holding Zhuo Fan in a tight and long hug. Zhuo Fan was also happy to see him. However, the demon scheming sect was dumbstruck. A freak like Zhuo Fan had a 7-year-old in the ethereal stage? His entire family is made of freaks. They could only sigh and shake their heads. Jiyu Santong pointed at the 2 sages. Why aren't you 2 dead yet? Last time you had me trapped real tight. Now you dare show your faces again before me? Let me just send you off then, permanently. Jiyu Santong was about to jump out of Zhuo Fan's arms and straight at the 2. The sages tensed and fell back. Young Sanzi, they're with me. I also helped you by teaching them a lesson. It's all in the past now. Zhuo Fan grabbed Jiyu Santong and explained, startled. Jiyu Santong turned to him and only after a while did he nod. How smart of you. You're only alive for being on Dad's side. Humph. Snickering, Jiyu Santong raised his tiny fist at the 2 and the sages sighed. Young lord, it's you who always messed with us. You're just as unreasonable as your old man. Scratch that, you're worse. The sages felt helpless before the duo bearing the same insufferable attitude. That's enough catching up. Let's see how we're going to attack mystical heaven sect. After pleasantries, Zhuo Fan turned serious. Yunhai, how many did you bring? Luo Yunhai cupped his hands. The 4 tigers of Qianyu are defending the border. Elder Yang is handling alchemy, while the stewards handle the internal affairs. Except for them, Luo Alliance's entire power is now present. We have 50 ethereal stage experts, 5,000 in the radiant stage and 100,000 large flying tiger army. Demon scheming sects oldies clicked their tongues. For a mere clan to gather such force sure is a rarity. As our agent in Qianyu, he really is amazing. Then we will make up for each side's gaps. Next will be crushing their home advantage. Zhuo Fan's eyes flashed and waved at the 2 armies to come and hear his plan. They all lit up and looked at him in stunned silence. 2 months later, in a dark room in mystical heaven sect, the sound of the door unlocking was heard as the heavy iron door creaked open. A savage face was revealed, yet he wore the lavish clothes of a gentleman. Shen Xiaoyu. In this dark place sat 3 girls, Chu Qing Cheng, Shui Ruohua, and a woman in her 30s, of soft skin and black eyebrows. Despite being pale, she kept her Grace senior sister Qianying. Is this really necessary? Xian Xiaoyu bore a twisted smile as he mocked. Your confinement will soon end. 20 years have passed, yet you still cling to this. You're unmarried, so I don't need you. Why must you cause such a scene? Glancing at him with a cold look, she spoke. Xiaoyu, I've watched you grow and thought you'd be different from your father. I was wrong. Your demons are worse than your father's. Your father loves his son dearly. Which is yours? My father, the sect leader, is your master, no? The way you talk is like you don't see him like that anymore. Xian Xiaoyu huffed and turned to Chu Qingqing's flawless beauty with intoxication. Everything I do is for love. Junior sister Qingcheng, half a year is almost up and he still hasn't showed up. You better hold your end. Don't worry, I won't suck you dry, I know restraint. I wish to grow old with you. Chu Qingqing's brow rose and she spoke flatly. He will come. Since he said he'll be here in 6 months, then he will be here. If he won't show, it's because you stopped him. I will always hold on until he comes before me. Humph, a demonic cultivator entering a righteous sect. Demon? Ha ha ha, who is the real demon here, I wonder? Han Qianying mocked. Xian Xiaoyu was furious and clenched his fists. But he controlled himself. Then, a frantic disciple rushed over to report, Young master, there's someone outside the sect asking for you. He said he's Zhua Fan from Demon Scheming Sect. Chapter 736, Arriving at Mystical Heaven Sect. Chapter 736, Arriving at Mystical Heaven Sect. Proofreader, Papatonks. Zhua Fan. Xian Xiaoyu's eyes widened in shock. This manic demon dares to knock on Mystical Heaven Sect's door? The girls were startled and Chu Qingcheng was smiling looking at her. Han Qianying smiled. Junior sister, your guy ain't bad. Just the fact he faces Mystical Heaven Sect alone shows his worth it. But I'm not content. I want to see him and hear his answer. Smiling, Chu Qingcheng sighed. Shui Ruohua looked on in envy. Junior sister, a man that cares for you will be with you forever. I believe his answer will be the one you wanted. Enough. Xian Xiaoyu snorted. Demonic cultivators are cruel. How can a damn demonic cultivator be fit to stand next to junior sister Qingcheng? His flowery speech has duped her. I will never let her be deceived by such a shameless fiend. Shui Ruohua sighed. Junior brother, how did you turn out like this? So petty and greedy. You weren't like that before. I changed, you say? It's you who changed. You've always been cold like ice and against demonic cultivators. While now you let yourself be taken by the demonic path. Xian Xiaoyu's eyes turned bloodshot from anger. Even if you changed, it doesn't matter. I refuse to let Qingcheng sink any lower. Han Qianying watched his crazed attitude and sighed to Shui Ruohua. Junior sister, let it go. He's been taken by his demons. He's even worse than a demonic cultivator. He won't wake up. His father must know this as well, yet what does he do? He still caters to his crazed son's whims yet says he purges demons. His son wouldn't have ended up like this if he hadn't pampered him to this extent. Sigh, his father has been overcome by his demon as well, or he wouldn't have dragged junior sister Qingcheng into this. Mystical Heaven Sect has long since stopped being righteous. Shui Ruohua's heart was crushed and she sighed. Mystical Heaven Sect was where she grew up, always being righteous as it was. But at some point, she noticed that it had turned rotten. Its glory, hiding a deep shadow more dreadful than a demonic sect. Her sadness only deepened. Xian Xiaoyu mocked. Junior sister Qingcheng, you really think I'll let Zhua Fan go since he came alone to Mystical Heaven Sect? Or what, you'll detain him, someone so important to Demon Scheming Sect? Chu Qingcheng sneered. Xian Xiaoyu gnashed his teeth. There are plenty of ways to keep him here. Don't underestimate me, junior sister. You can't beat him and I advise you not to taunt him, lest you want your life to be over. Chu Qingcheng spoke. Xian Xiaoyu's heart shook, then he was enraged. Her cold attitude showed how little she cared about him. He clenched his fists, and came to a decision. Junior sister, you'll see. I will make him crawl like a dog before me. We'll see who's the final winner. Guard. Yes, young master. One disciple bowed. Did Zhuofan come alone? Is there anyone with him? Xian Xiaoyu squinted. The disciple reported, Young master, there is one man with him, one called Kuei Lang. Kuei Lang? Isn't that senior sister Qianying's close friend? Ha ha ha. Xian Xiaoyu snickered at her. Senior sister Qianying, you were just praising Qingqing's yearning, but yours isn't any humbler. Because of his love for you, Kuei Lang had abandoned his match with me in the Double Dragon Gathering, risking his sect's punishment. How else would we get to beat Demon Scheming sect in singles? Now that he came waltzing in here like an ignorant fool, I bet senior sister must be wanting to see him too. Han Qianying shook. Xian Xiaoyu snickered. Don't worry, I'll make sure to leave his corpse for senior sister to bury, ha ha ha. Xian Xiaoyu laughed as he left. The iron door closed shut behind him. Han Qianying clenched her fists, her heart a mess of joy and sorrow. Then she started blaming Kuei Lang, this foolish man, coming to Mystical Heaven sect. But I'm relieved that he still remembers me after all these years. I didn't suffer 20 years in vain. Chu Qingcheng smiled at her. Senior sister, rest easy. With Zhuofan around, he will be fine. That guy of yours, is that amazing? Can he stand tall before Mystical Heaven sect? Han Qianying asked curiously. She admired Zhuofan's courage, but she was still skeptical about his power. Mystical Heaven sect was a sect after all, and he'd be trapped in its array once inside. How was he to protect Kuei Lang when he had to worry about himself first? She knew Zhuofan was revered in Demon Scheming sect, but Xian Xiaoyu had become obsessed and would not care if the sects became enemies. Young master must be planning to get rid of them at all costs. Who will save them then? Chu Qingcheng smiled to ease her worries. I know Zhuofan better than anyone, so relax. He never was one to lose out. I have never seen him lose in any of his fights. I believe he came prepared this time as well. Chu Qingcheng's face was one of absolute trust. Han Qianying watched, stunned. Shui Ruohua nodded as well. Senior sister, I've seen Zhuofan as well, he's not normal. Kuei Lang should be safe with him. Han Qianying looked at them and took a deep breath to calm her heart. All she could do was pray that this unknown and mysterious Zhuofan would be capable of a miracle to keep both of them safe. Tilda. Outside of Mystical Heaven sect, an opening popped into thin air, followed by a disciple coming out and welcoming Zhuofan and Kuei Lang. Honored guests, sect leader welcomes you in his hall. The disciple was in the profound heaven stage. He bowed and spoke amiably. Zhuofan raised an eyebrow. Mystical Heaven sect wants to play around, huh? This is clearly a trap. Not that they were scared, since they came willingly into the tiger's den. The two cupped their hands and Zhuofan spoke, thank you for leading us. The disciple bowed again and took them in. Steward Zhuo, they didn't attack outside because they want to get rid of all traces on the inside. They don't want to take any chances. Kuei Lang sent to Zhuofan. Zhuofan smiled and nodded, sending back, that's for sure. They went for the girls and know why I'm here. Since they welcome us in, it shows they want to kill us outright, not caring about the Demon Scheming sect. Then we don't need to hold back at all. But before we start, we must make sure the girls are safe. We can't have them using them as hostages. Kuei Lang's eyes flashed. They soon arrived at the flashy main hall. The disciple led Zhuofan and Kuei Lang inside, but on the main seat they saw an old man that was barely skin and bones with a hard look and dignified awe. The disciple bowed. Greetings, sect leader. The honored guests have arrived. Leave us. Sect leader Xian spoke and the disciple left. Sect leader Xian looked Zhuofan in the eye. It is you, Zhuofan. Does sect leader Xian know me? Zhuofan raised an eyebrow. Sect leader Xian nodded. 10 years ago, in Tianyu Empire, I chose Chu Qingcheng to prepare for Double Dragon Gathering, while Xie Wuyue chose you. I thought I had him pay a heavy price for you, but I was astonished to find out how much you shone in the Double Dragon Gathering. Your name shook the Western lands. I can see that sect leader Xie's eyes were sharper than mine. Ha ha ha, sect leader Xian is too kind. Zhuofan smiled. This old bag of bones, what's with that heavy look? What Double Dragon Gathering preparations? You clearly took her for your son. You think I don't know? Hypocrite. Zhuofan and Kuei Lang despised him on the inside. Chapter 737, Bargain. Chapter 737, Bargain. Proofreader, Papatonks. Sect leader Xian's face was flat as he said, I can't help but wonder, what has brought you to my sect? Can it be that sect leader hasn't heard? Zhuo Fan raised a taunting eyebrow, Qing Cheng and I come from Tianyu and have known each other since. I owed her a clear answer since then and never got to give it yet. At the Double Dragon gathering, I came upon a realization, so I had told her that I would give her an answer half a year later. Now I have come to fulfill that promise. Sect leader Xian squinted and turned colder on the spot. Is it love? Oh, sect leader Xian is so wise to see it. Zhuo Fan nodded with a smile. Kuei Lang at the side had to hide his chuckling bam. Sect leader Xian slammed the armrest in anger and jumped to his feet. Zhuo Fan, you're a demon-scheming sect disciple. If you're here on sect matters, I'm most open for discussions, but my sect has rules too. My disciples are forbidden from being friendly with demonic cultivators, especially about fraternizing. For you to mention this to me, are you perhaps doing it to mock my sect rules? Men, seize them. Yes. Sect leader Xian issued his order and the main hall was flooded with people from everywhere, all profound heaven disciples. Zhuo Fan sneered, did this guy not hear about my feats at Double Dragon Gathering? When even ethereal stage experts were no match for him, what was he doing throwing small fries at him? Since so many came at a mere shout, it was obvious this was premeditated. This wasn't to capture them, but to force them to strike first. Sect leader Xian knew killing demon scheming sect's best disciple just from a mere offense was the worst way to do it. He had to get this disciple to make the first move, by killing mystical heaven sect's people and sealing his fate. The fact one killed their men, even in their own home, was inexcusable, making it so killing him in turn was totally justified. Not even Double Dragon Manor might get involved. This sly dog wants us killed. Zhuo Fan squinted and just stood there. Kuei Lang looked calm as well, giving Zhuo Fan a look of admiration. It's all going as Steward Zhuo predicted. This old coot really wants to make us start killing. First is to lure us into a crime, then use experts to purge us for the demons we are. Thank God Steward Zhuo saw it coming or we'd have started killing. Not so fast. Zhuo Fan shouted, Sect leader Xian, you knew long ago why we're here. Why all the theatrics? Let's be blunt about it and talk business. Sect leader Xian watched the two as the tide of people only surrounded them. He knew his plan fell through and waved, all of you leave. The disciples started, then receded as the tide, gone in a blink and leaving the three alone once more. You're worthy of your reputation in Tianyu Empire. To have your name echoing far and wide after Double Dragon Gathering as well, Steward Zhuo sure is something. Steward Zhuo nodded, if anyone else would have come to me with this, I'd hardly care. But Steward Zhuo, since it's you, I'm a little intrigued. What kind of business are you talking about? Zhuo Fan smiled, Sect leader Xian, Mystical Heaven sect has lost in the Double Dragon Gathering and hardly got anything. Ha ha ha, not that much. It's pretty much the same as always. With a sharp glint in his eyes, sect leader Xian noticed something. Zhuo Fan, where are you going with this? Nowhere, really, only considering sect leader Xian's position. Demon Scheming Sect and Mystical Heaven Sect have always been at odds. Demon Scheming Sect now has 10,000 sacred stones to grow. Mystical Heaven Sect only got 200. 100 years from now, Demon Scheming Sect will soar while Mystical Heaven Sect will be stuck. Even if there were more Double Dragon gatherings, do you really believe you have the power to turn it around? What are the odds of something like Demon Scheming Sect's sudden rise happening again? At that time, who knows what our sect leader would do? Zhuo Fan had an evil smile on his face as he looked at Kuei Lang. Getting a little bit of kick out of it, right? Ha ha ha. Steward Zhuo, you have a much too kind opinion of our sect leader. When the time comes, he won't stop there, he'll make sure none of those that offended him will ever return. Right, it's you who's been in the sect for longer and got his temper. Ha ha ha, Zhuo Fan patted Kuei Lang's shoulder. Kuei Lang laughed as well. Sect leader Xian's cheek twitched. Zhuo Fan, just say what you want. Let's make a deal. His face back to being serious, Zhuo Fan began, you know what I want. I got 2,000 sacred stones from the Double Dragon Gathering, almost the same amount the last spot in middle 3 sects got. If you have them and grow up fast, In the next Double Dragon gathering you won't fall so far behind of demon scheming sect leader Shen's eyes lit up. He probed, "You mean you're willing to give me 2,000 sacred stones?" "It's not give, but trade." Zhuo Fan squinted, "We only want Chu Qingcheng and Han Qianying, then these sacred stones are yours to do what you please with them." "Quite the bargain." Sect leader Shen frowned, his heart stirred by all kinds of feelings, even as his face looked stone cold. "You want me to give my disciples to 2 demonic cultivators just for that? What do you take me? Businessman?" Zhuo Fan cut him off with a smile, "You made a deal with Qingcheng the first time. Now I am the one making a deal with you. You had Qingcheng come to your sect for Double Dragon gathering. Now it's over, and you didn't get to win much either. And now that I come to you with a losing deal on my part, you're not going to take it." Sect leader Shen's beard shook as he frowned. Using disciples in a deal is not the righteous path. But seeing how you're so willing, then of the two, just one. It's either both or the deal is off. We'll just leave and won't even take them. Demonic cultivators are cruel at the core and we want the 2 just so we can ease our regrets. But if the price is too high, we'd rather not take it. Breaking emotions is a road we all must take. Zhuo Fan's eyes flashed, giving sect leader Shen no chance to haggle. Sect leader Shen knows that I only have 2,000 sacred stones on me. I also only want the 2 girls. From the start, our chips were called, and this deal can only have 2 outcomes. Please, enough with the games, sect leader Shen. You're looking down on our sincerity. Amazing. Sect leader Shen was dumbstruck, but then he sighed, "Men, bring Qingcheng and Qianying." "Yes." One disciple outside the doors shouted and rushed to comply. Zhuo Fan and Kuei Lang nodded and grinned. It all went perfectly so far. The old coot was taken in by the sacred stones. Easing a breath, sect leader Shen felt stuck. He discovered that ever since Zhuo Fan showed up, everything went his way. Being led around like this left him feeling most unsettled. Not even when talking with Xie Wuye would he lose so much ground. Sect leader Shen was glum inside, so he said, "Zhuo Fan, does Xie Wuye know you're giving up 2,000 sacred stones for 2 girls? If sect leader knew, would we have reached here?" Zhuo Fan smiled. "We all know using resources on the enemy isn't good for the sect, but demonic cultivators are selfish. For our girls, we sometimes have no choice but to ignore the sect." Sect leader Shen nodded, "Just like I thought. Xie Wuye has no clue about this." "That's good. They came by themselves. That means they don't have demon scheming sect backing them. Even if I take the stones, then I can." Sect leader Shen's eyes flashed with bloodthirst as he made a sinister grin. Shen Xiaoyu just came out of that room and was about to go to main hall, to prance around as Zhuo Fan was at his death door. Yet he saw a disciple rushing to where the girls were held and shouted, "Hey, what are you doing?" "Young master." The guy bowed, "Young master, I am obeying sect leader's order, taking Chu Qingcheng and Han Qianying to the main hall." "What?" Shen Xiaoyu looked at the main hall in shock. "Father, what the hell are you doing?" Chapter 738, The Answer. Chapter 738, The Answer. Proofreader, Papatonks. What happened to the 2 from the demon scheming sect? Are they dead yet? Feeling restless for some reason, Shen Xiaoyu grabbed the disciple's shoulder as he asked. The disciple was slightly scared, holding in the pain coming from his shoulder as he faltered. They and sect leader were at odds at first. Sect leader gave the order to kill them, but then what? Shen Xiaoyu stared fixedly at him, gulping. The guy hesitated, then sect leader had us leave. They talked some more, seemingly reaching a conclusion, then sect leader had me bring the ladies. Beat it. Shen Xiaoyu roared, pushing him. His cheek twitched, his eyes exploding with fury. Reaching a conclusion? What the hell is that old coot doing? Didn't I tell him Zhuo Fan must be killed? Why are they just chatting? The disciple slowly got back to his feet, not even looking the angry young master in the eye. Young master, if that is all. I have to pass the order. Hold it. Shen Xiaoyu barked and the guy almost cried in fear. He didn't know how he was supposed to face such a crazed young master. He feared the young master would explode and kill him. Ever since Double Dragon gathering, the young master was unnatural, his mood volatile. Many junior brothers were killed at the slightest whim. It would not be much if this was a demonic sect, but we're a righteous sect here. How can you kill left and right? But since he was sect leader's son, everyone had no choice but to bear it. The guy spoke on the verge of crying. Young master, how may I help you? I'm coming with you. I want to see what game Zhuo Fan is playing to unsettle the old man. Xian Xiaoyu clenched his fists as his face twisted in rage. 15 minutes later, the heavy iron door opened with a creak. Xian Xiaoyu and the disciple were back inside. Chu Qingcheng mocked. Back already? Xian Xiaoyu was vexed. He didn't answer. The disciple walked up. By sect leader's order, senior sisters Qingcheng and Qianying, please come to the main hall. Why should we? Chu Qingcheng asked back. The disciple shook his head. I don't know. After sect leader talked with the two disciples from Demon Scheming sect, he told me to get Pa. Before he finished, the disciple was met with disaster in the form of a hard slap. It hit his cheek with so much force, he was bleeding from the mouth and collapsed. You're supposed to relay the order, not run your mouth. Xian Xiaoyu glared. The disciple was overcome with injustice, but did not voice a word. The girls were overjoyed. Zhuo Fan got sect leader Xian to get them out. Han Qianying was startled as she muttered in disbelief. The crude Kuei Lang knows how to negotiate. It has to be Zhuo Fan. Qingcheng, your man is really something to make sect leader yield. Chu Qingcheng smiled. Her pride in Zhuo Fan could not be explained with mere words. Xian Xiaoyu was annoyed at their faces and was about to blow a gasket. Don't get too happy. You might be going to main hall just to see Zhuo Fan begging on his knees for my dad's mercy. Give it up. Xian Xiaoyu snapped. Men, take them. Yes. Someone came over to escort them. Wait. They turned to Shui Ruohua. Can I come to the main hall to see as well? Shui Ruohua spoke. Xian Xiaoyu squinted then nodded with a mocking smile. Sure, senior sister Ruohua, you've always looked after me before, but since the punk showed up, you've changed. Were you entranced by him as well? Then I'll bring you along as well, to see who the real winner is between us. Xian Xiaoyu flicked his hand and another person came to Shui Ruohua to take her. Flushing red, Shui Ruohua glanced at Chu Qingcheng, but what she got in reply was a curious look. She had to lower her beet-red face, unable to look straight at her. Xian Xiaoyu and the three girls strutted over to the main hall. Qianying. Seeing the girls, the restless Kuei Lang rushed to his feet and went to the girl he hadn't seen in 20 years to grab her soft face. Han Qianying shook, her own hands gently tracing the aged face as she spoke tenderly. It's been so long, Kuei Lang. Yeah, the child is all grown up. Kuei Lang nodded, choked with emotion. Zhuo Fan smiled. Then he looked at Chu Qingcheng, yet in no rush to go to her. He just gracefully put down the teacup and simply walked to her. I've come to take you. Hold on. Zhuo Fan didn't get to reach her as Chu Qingcheng stopped him. You came to take me? That's it. Why? Everyone started, not understanding her. Shui Ruohua was the most confused. Didn't she always want to see Zhuo Fan? Why refuse now? Zhuo Fan chuckled. Yeah, I didn't come just to take you. I want to give you a 10 years late answer. Chu Qingcheng's eyes shook as she smiled. Do you still remember the question? Of course I do. Zhuo Fan took a deep breath as he began. I remember you asking me in Drifting Flowers City whether I had any reason to stay for longer. Chu Qingcheng nodded, and I recall you telling me no. I lied, and for that I even coughed blood, the reason for the blood you saw. Zhuo Fan's eyes glistened with tears, as if recalling that feeling. Now I want to answer you once more. In the Drifting Flowers City, the only reason I had for wanting to stay was to spend my life in that rundown house. Because there I lived with the person I never wanted to leave. Chu Qingcheng's mouth shook then widened in a mesmerizing smile. Is this just another lie? Who knows? You'll have the rest of your life to see. Zhuo Fan smiled as he opened his arms. Are you willing to live your life by this demon's side, to verify this answer? Chu Qingcheng giggled. Brazen demon, I will watch you all my life to see if you lied. If I find out you did, humph. Chu Qingcheng stomped her feet then rushed for Zhuo Fan to hold him in a fierce hug. She closed her eyes and listened to his heart as she muttered, from now on, I will always listen to this sound, to know you. I couldn't be happier. He wrapped his hands around her waist as tenderness was evoked on his features. He took a deep breath, feeling like the whole world was at peace, or maybe that he possessed the entire world. Shui Ruohua watched stunned and sighed in disappointment, yet wished them well. Kuei Lang was also smiling, happy for him. Only Xian Xiaoyu was fuming mad, ready to spew fire like a volcano. Vile demon, I'm not giving junior sister Qingcheng to you. Father, what is this? Why are you giving them to these demons? If word got out, who would respect mystical heaven sect again? What about me and my illness? Xian Xiaoyu turned to sect leader Xian, who started pointing out the reasons to not do this. By giving Chu Qingcheng to Zhuofan, how am I supposed to repair my elemental imbalance? I still need her virginity. She can only be my woman. Sect leader Xian knew all of this but remained undeterred. Because he wanted both his son alive and those stones. Sect leader Xian spoke. Zhuofan, you already have what you wanted. Are you going to honor your promise? What promise? When did I promise you anything? Zhuofan mocked, going back on his word on the spot. Sect leader Xian roared, Zhuofan, you dare toy with me? Don't forget, you're in mystical heaven sect now. And I got what I wanted anyway. Ha ha ha. Zhuofan's eyes glinted, his smile devilish. Chapter 739, Blatant Taunt. Chapter 739, Blatant Taunt. Proofreader, Papatonks. Sect leader Xian's face fell as he barked, I knew demonic cultivators aren't to be trusted, but I never believed you had the nerve to go back on your word right in my sec. Go back on my word? Ha ha ha, sect leader Xian, you're blowing things out of proportion. Zhuofan sneered, speaking of trust, there's nothing of the sort between us. Let's be honest here, did you really go that far, all the way to Tianyu to get Qingcheng, just for double dragon gathering? Wasn't it to save your poor excuse of a son? Sect leader Xian shook as he spoke, where did you hear that? Pa. Zhuofan snapped his fingers and in a flash of blue, the Dana everyone knew appeared. Dana. The girls cried. Dana was shocked to appear here, but was happy to go to them. Sister Ruohua, Qingcheng, I told Zhuofan everything. He'll take us out. The girls smiled in joy. Sect leader Xian knew Zhuofan knew everything and no longer faked. He stood up, unleashing all his power and his bloodlust. He clearly wanted to rob Zhuofan. Zhuofan sneered, Sect leader Xian, it was you who showed no trust in us. Our deal was never going to work. But now, I will give you one last chance. 2,000 sacred stones for Qingcheng and Han Qianying. You now have a choice to make, between the future of the sect and your son's life. The people started and turned to sect leader Xian to wait for his answer. The girls now understood how Zhuofan convinced their sect leader to get them here. 2,000 sacred stones were very enticing for a sect. No wonder even the sect leader, who was always thinking about his son, was enticed. But when Zhuofan only mentioned Chu Qingcheng and Han Qianying, Shui Ruohua was crushed. How did he forget about her? Xian Xiaoyu stared at his father, soaked in sweat, and waiting for his decision. It couldn't be that his dad was going to forsake him for 2,000 sacred stones, right? Zhuofan. Sect leader Xian squinted as he spoke, I want the fish and I also want the bear paw. How will you settle it? Zhuofan stared hard at him, isn't it giving up the fish for the bear paw? Smiley face, Mencius saying. The meaning is you have to sacrifice something in order to gain something. For the entire story, https://ethics of suicide. Lib Utah. EDU selections. Mencius. Wrong, it's eating the paw and taking the fish. That's how you have them both. Sect leader Xian's aura exploded as his bloodthirst spiked, making everyone shiver. The power of an 8th layer ethereal stage expert caused these radiant stage cultivators to feel like they were under a mountain, suffocating under its pressure. Xian Xiaoyu was overjoyed. He got his dad's intention, to get both Chu Qingcheng and the stones. That meant killing the two. His joy was short-lived, however, as a scarlet fist slammed into his chest, he couldn't even react as the power went through his chest like a sword. He sprayed out blood from his mouth as he was sent flying, making a 3-meter large hole in the wall. The bright sunlight shone from the outside, on his bloody figure and glinting off the golden scales of his armor, now dented. Shuddering, Xian Xiaoyu looked at his original spot with hatred. Zhuofan. TCH, a 9th grade spiritual armor. It must be your lucky day to survive a blow from me. Zhuo Fan said in disdain. Sect leader Xian went pale. A 30-meter-long red spear appeared behind him and pierced at Zhuo Fan's small build as he roared, "Zhuo Fan, you harmed my son. Die." At the incoming immense power bearing down on them, Han Qianying paled and wanted to warn Zhuo Fan, but Kuei Lang stopped her with a smile. Han Qianying was puzzled. Zhuo Fan looked to be in the radiant stage. Fighting sect leader in his crazed state was a death sentence. However, Kuei Lang showed not an ounce of worry. Do they all believe Zhuo Fan can live after sect leader's soul attack? She had no way of knowing. All the people here had seen Zhuo Fan's might, and they knew it was out of this world. Sect leader Xian, you're using power to have your way. Since you wanted this, then I won't hold back. Ha ha ha. Zhuo Fan snorted and looked at the long spear. He squinted and a dragon roar echoed out as an astonishing light came from his body. Bam! The loud bang grated the other's ears, the flood of power sweeping everything and making the main hall erupt, its pieces falling everywhere. The mighty force made the whole sect quake. The elders and venerable were startled and rushed over, while the clueless disciples just watched the main hall in stupefaction. What's going on over there? The ground kept shaking as dust engulfed the skies, covering the bright sun above. The girls held their ears, shaking with the earth as they tried to hold on. When the dust settled, Han Qianying watched in shock. That. Qianying, that is the proof Steward Shuo is the best disciple in Western lands, a heaven dragon soul like exalted double dragon. The large scarlet dragon flicked to its tail and wrapped the spear tight. It could not budge an inch. Zhuo Fan sneered at the spear, hardly caring about it. Kuei Lang ached in pride, as he made the introductions to his woman. As if the soul was his to begin with. Stumped, Han Qianying now came to and sighed, "Junior sister, your man is just like you said. It's my first time seeing a disciple stopping sect leaders in raged blow." Chu Qingcheng smiled in pride. Kuei Lang was also smug. "Qianying, Steward Shuo isn't just a disciple, in the double dragon gathering his strength has got nothing to do with you. Don't talk like his glory is yours." Han Qianying cast her elegant eyes on him and shook her head. "You haven't changed after all these years. You still like to brag, I see." Kuei Lang gave a bashful smile, looking at Han Qianying with joy and bliss. Sect leader Xian watched Zhuo Fan's dragon and was shocked. He heard the disciples that came back that Zhuo Fan was tough, but not by this much. He was at the 8th layer ethereal stage, yet Zhuo Fan was only in the 4th layer radiant stage. The gap was more than 10 layers. Even with the heaven dragon soul, there was a limit to how much one could bridge it, yet his ever-trusted long spear could not even touch Zhuo Fan, trapped by that scarlet dragon. It was so strong it even overwhelmed an expert like him. Zhuo Fan saw through his shock. "Sect leader Xian, I might be of lower cultivation, but my soul formed when I entered the radiant stage. In other words, my soul is like a 4th layer ethereal stage soul. Not to mention it's the strongest there is, the heaven dragon soul. You'll have to try harder if you want to take my life. Ha ha ha." Sect leader Xian was outraged, his fists clenched. This is a blatant taunt. Never in his life had he been taunted by such a young radiant stage expert. What made it worse was that the taunt was irrefutable. Looking at the trapped long spear, sect leader Xian grew angrier. On his turf, he was the one that looked bad, his son was smashed, and he couldn't do anything about it. He felt he had no face left. Whoosh tilde. Sect leader Xian shook and recalled the long spear. His eyes were fixed on Zhuo Fan, glinting coldly. "Zhuo Fan, you really are the best disciple you showed at Double Dragon Gathering. But don't think for a second you can go where you want in Western lands. You're not the best yet. Here is the mystical heaven sect, not your backyard." Sect leader Xian roared and tens of figures littered the sky. You're tuning in to the Celestial War YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.